Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Luck-seizing system, dominate the universe. Chapter 81. Sir, the outer shell of the armor is mainly made of gold and red, which is very consistent with your flamboyant personality. The joints and other parts meet the force requirements of human body mechanics. It needs to be changed. Tony said. Human body mechanics are just human body mechanics for ordinary people. As he spoke, he twisted his neck more than 90 degrees, bent his arms and waist, and made unusual movements. It's not suitable for me. Also, please remember that Jarvis is confident, not arrogant. Quote. Okay, sir, I remember. Just remember. Now scan my body and redesign the mechanical structure of the joints based on the physical condition. Well, it's more exaggerated and imaginative. Tony was busy in the laboratory, perfecting the design of the armor. With the assistance of artificial intelligence Jarvis, all that was left in this aspect of work was checking for gaps and making modifications. Next is the power core. Jarvis said. Compared with the power of the arc energy reactor you developed, the maximum endurance of this armor is no more than half an hour. It is strongly recommended to upgrade the arc energy reactor. Tony nodded, then shook his head. Upgrading is necessary, but it does not target armor. He had already made plans in his mind. Zhao Yu once talked to him about some things in this regard. He knew that as long as he advanced to refine Qi, refine his magic power, and then turn the armor into a life talisman, then there would be no need to rely on outside sources for the power and energy of the armor. The armor will not stop until the mana is exhausted. It would be even more wonderful if talismans such as spirit-gathering talismans were engraved on the armor. During battle, even the need for mana would be greatly reduced. But for the time being, it's not possible until the state is reached. Therefore, the energy core is still a major obstacle to the armor's endurance for the time being. Tony's personality pursues perfection. Before turning the armor into a life-saving talisman, the energy core of the armor still needs to be perfect, not for the armor, but also for the Stark Group's energy plan. While Tony was delving into armor and energy sources, Obadiah was currently arguing with someone. You haven't fulfilled my request and you still want the remaining money. There is nothing so cheap in this world, Obadiah said angrily. If you kill Tony, I am even willing to pay 10 times the price, but you brought him back. I know that you planned to let Tony serve you, but you miscalculated. That fool's head is 10,000 times smarter than yours. Now, get out of here. Mr. Obadiah, you can regret it. A gentle man was not angry at Obadiah's roar, but smiled conspiratorially. But if I tell it, what about Tony Stark? What do you think the consequences will be? Obadiah's expression changed. You want to break the rules. Rules? The man laughed. What are rules? Rules are made by people. They can make rules or break them. And we have that strength. Besides, haven't we already given you some good things? Obadiah gritted his teeth in hatred. He took a few deep breaths, and had no choice but to take out his checkbook, write a check, tear it off, and throw it to the man. Get out. Give it to me right now. I'm out. The man, Shirin, picked up the check, put it to his mouth, blew it, smiled slightly, turned around and left. Obadiah slumped weakly on the sofa, rubbing his brows, and his heart was in a mess. Tony must not let Tony know about this matter. Once he finds out, he will be kicked out or even imprisoned. However, the Stark Group is his ban. He thought for a long time and suddenly opened his eyes, showing a stern expression of gritted teeth. Go to the group's weapons research and development department. Obadiah cheered up, took his coat, and hurried out the door. In the weapons research and development laboratory of the Stark Group, when Obadiah came here and saw the tall steel giant, his tense face finally relaxed a little. He looked at the steel armor, his mind was spinning rapidly, and he asked, how is the progress? Basically completed. The researcher in charge of this armor said. As long as the energy core is in place, performance testing can be carried out tomorrow. But Mr. Obadiah, the several energy cores we made cannot perfectly support the operation of this armor. Unless a nuclear reactor is used, otherwise. But nuclear reactors have risks. Obadiah pondered and nodded. I'll figure it out. As long as you can make sure that this armor meets the requirements except for the energy core, it's enough. We can guarantee that. Very good. Obadiah pondered, turned and left. The next day, Obadiah came to Stark Tower and said to the secretary beside him, "Where is Miss Potts? I have something to see her." "In the office on the top floor," the secretary replied. Obadiah nodded and walked into the elevator. Arriving outside the assistant's office on the top floor, he knocked on the door and heard Pepper's voice, "Please come in." "Miss Potts." Pepper looked up and saw that it was Obadiah. He couldn't help but stood up quickly. "Mr. Obadiah, what can I do for you?" He was about to make coffee. Obadiah waved his hand. "I have something to do with Tony. You inform him and ask him to come to the building now. I will wait for him in the office." "Okay." Pepper nodded seriously after hearing this. Obadiah turned around and left, but did not return to his office. Instead, he took the elevator downstairs, left his bodyguard and secretary aside, and drove a car to the suburbs alone. At a certain intersection, Obadiah was parked. Seeing Tony's cool sports car passing by, he slightly raised the corner of his mouth and revealed a sneer. Tony, you said you have an energy core, is it an advanced version of the armor's energy core, then?" He stepped on the accelerator hard and the car roared to life. When Obadiah's car drove into Tony's Ocean View mansion, Jarvis's voice sounded, "Mr. Obadiah, Mr. Tony is not at home." "I know," Obadiah said. "He went to the company. There is a very important piece of information. He said he would put it in the laboratory and ask me to come and pick it up." "Permission check." "Okay, sir, you have permission to enter and exit the villa," Jarvis said. Obadiah's expression remained unchanged, and he walked into Tony's villa very calmly, walked into the laboratory, and immediately saw the arc energy reactor placed on the test bench. "Where's Uncle Obadiah?" When Tony arrived at Stark Tower and saw no one, he suddenly felt a little unhappy. He is busy. If it were anyone else, he would ignore it. But now that he is here, he is nowhere to be seen. What does this mean? "Sorry, sir. Mr. Obadiah is temporarily busy, but he will be here soon," Obadiah's secretary explained repeatedly. "Okay." Tony shrugged. "I'll wait for him." Within 20 minutes, Tony saw Obadiah in his office. "If it's about shutting down the weapons department, I don't think there's anything to say," Tony said. "Uncle Obadiah, you know me. What I have decided cannot be changed." Obadiah sighed. "I know. I thought about it for a day and decided to support you just like I supported Howard. I just hope this move will not disappoint us." "Of course not, I promise." Tony smiled. "Oh, it's great that you can support me. I think we should have a drink." He poured the wine, clinked glasses with Obadiah, drank it all, and then called Potts in, "Notify all major media that I will hold a press conference." After an hour, in the square in front of Stark Tower, representatives of journalists from most media outlets across the United States were present. There is always countless news about Tony. When he heard that the Stark Group was going to hold a press conference, he immediately came to the news like flies smelling shit. "Look, only I, Tony Stark, have such appeal." Tony laughed and walked onto the podium. "Mr. Stark, I am a reporter from the BBC. I heard that you are going to shut down the weapons department of the Stark Group. Is this true?" "Mr. Stark, you haven't had news for a long time. You must break the news today. All this makes a lot of noise." Tony raised his hand, and there was silence. "Thank you very much for coming to my impromptu press conference." Tony smiled and said, "You must be looking forward to it very much, right? Huge news, absolutely hot news." He pointed at the BBC reporter. This extremely handsome reporter, your guess, is correct." "Yes, I, Tony Stark, want to shut down the weapons department of the Stark Group." Coax. Suddenly, there was an uproar. Indeed, there were rumors before that Stark was going to shut down weapons research and development, but anyone who heard it would immediately conclude that it was nonsense. The Stark Group is just an arms group. It has shut down the research and development and manufacturing of weapons. What else is there? This is asking for death. The reporter just asked that casually, but to his surprise, it turned out to be true. He couldn't help but be stunned. "Yes, I solemnly announce here that from now on, the Stark Group will officially shut down the research and development and manufacturing of weapons. I think many people will be happy to hear my decision, right? Without our weapons, the Ministry of National Defense will, foreign orders, it's their turn. Hammer Group, your opportunity has come, you must seize it." "I disagree." With a dull roar, everyone in the entire square couldn't help but raise their heads. Then they heard a huge earthquake, and the glass wall on roughly the third and fourth floors of Stark Tower shattered. Scattered glass fragments flew into the huge. The steel robot jumped down. Broken glass flew, many people were injured, and the whole square was in chaos. Tony stood there, his face already stiff. Uncle Obadiah. There was a hint of disbelief in his voice. It was clearly agreed just now. Why did it suddenly change? Moreover, how did this huge steel armor jump out of Stark Tower? Why didn't he, Tony, know? Tony Stark. Obadiah's roar came from the armor. I will never allow you to shut down the weapons research and development and manufacturing department. The Stark Group is my hard work and mine. You go to hell. Get out of the way. Seeing the steel-armored Tarzan charging towards him, Tony shouted to alert the people around him, and then he ducked away. Obadiah, why are you doing this? I have already said that the group will transform into energy. Take your energy and die. The sword has been unsheathed. How could Obadiah stop because of Tony's words? The heavy and huge armor turned around, grabbed the table on the rostrum, and smashed the hood towards Tony. Facing the huge steel armor, Tony felt like a dog biting a turtle with nowhere to bite. He looked at his fists and then at the armor, only regretting that he didn't have a weapon in his hands. Even a wooden stick would be fine. The commotion under Stark Tower soon spread, and in the distance, sirens were approaching. Pepper came down from upstairs and ran out of the hall. Seeing Tony being chased by the steel armor, he was at a loss for a moment and didn't know what to do. Tony dodged and took the time to punch the steel armor a few times, but all he got in return were red fists. He has cultivated to the 3rd level of pure yang body refining boxing, and his strength is only about 3 tons. One punch will only stagger the huge and heavy armor, leaving only a thin fist mark, the armor joints. There is a thick crust everywhere, and it looks like Tony is really having a hard time getting over Obadiah. And Tony knew that Obadiah's armor was not made of ordinary steel, otherwise he would definitely be able to punch through the shell with one punch. Tony. Pepper's shouts not only caught Tony's attention, but also Obadiah's. Obadiah suddenly laughed. Tony, do you care about your woman? Playboy. The Iron Giant turned around and rushed towards Pepper. Tony's expression changed drastically. Pepper, go upstairs. Go upstairs quickly. Pepper is just an ordinary woman. If Obadiah gets close to her. Tony gritted his teeth, jumped up, rushed up, jumped on the back of the armor, and was sitting on Obadiah's neck. He exerted all his strength, used his strength, and punched one after another. He punched the armored head hard, causing blood to bleed from his fist, and the armored head was dented piece by piece. But the armor is not the human body. Obadiah's armor is very large. Not only is the outer shell thick, but there is also enough buffer space inside. Tony's unskilled fists couldn't hurt Obadiah inside the armor. Call Peter. Pepper heard this before she ran into the building. She was suddenly excited, and then she remembered Tony's apprenticeship. Her face showed a look of ecstasy, and she ran to the elevator and took out her mobile phone. Peter is in class. He is a high school student. In class, I was concentrating on it. Suddenly, my cell phone rang. Dozens of pairs of eyes shot at Peter in unison. Peter looked embarrassed and stood up. Well, I'm sorry to disturb everyone. Sir, can I go out and take a call? The teacher nodded expressionlessly. Peter breathed a sigh of relief, hurriedly went out and answered the phone. This is Peter. Peter, save Tony. Peter was stunned. Slow down, what's going on? Who are you? What's wrong with Tony? I'm Pepper, Tony's assistant. Tony is in danger in Stark Tower. He asked me to call you. Come and save him. He won't last long. What? Peter shouted. I know, I'll be there right away. Just let him hold on a little longer. Peter hung up the phone and rushed into the classroom. Sir, I have to leave for a while, sorry. Without waiting for the teacher's answer, he turned around and went downstairs. The teacher shrugged. Maybe his girlfriend is pregnant. Well, Harry stood up. Teacher, I have something to leave for a while. Is your girlfriend pregnant too? Peter, what happened? Harry shouted, and Peter kept walking. Elder brother is in danger. I must go to Manhattan immediately. Wait for me, Harry said. I have a car. You're following me. The car is too slow. I'll go right over. Peter didn't even look back. Harry shrugged. Peter was telling the truth. With Peter currently at the 7th level of Chunyong body refining boxing, he is extremely physically strong, and he is also proficient in energy movement techniques. He can run faster on foot than in a car. Coupled with the bustling New York City, there is a high probability of traffic jams, and there are traffic lights. Even the best sports car cannot compare to Peter walking. Manhattan, Manhattan, Peter thought to himself, thinking of the shortest way from Queens to Manhattan. If you drive there normally, say at least half an hour. And he took a shortcut, no traffic jams, no detours, no more than 10 minutes. Hold on to. He quickened his pace, raised his legs like wheels, stirred up a puff of smoke, and ran like crazy. At the same time, his clothes began to change, from a school uniform to a chivalrous black night costume, a black training uniform and a black face scarf. While running, smoke and dust billowed everywhere along the way, causing screams. Black man. If it were in the past, Peter, a naughty boy, would have stayed to say hello to the fans and maybe take photos as a souvenir, but we don't have that time now. Tony is actually in danger. He thought as he ran. Stark Tower is senior brother Tony's home base, how could it be in danger? Moreover, the senior brother has mastered his boxing skills to the 3rd level. How could an ordinary person be his opponent? Unless, his eyes narrowed, are these fools starting to show up again? Peter thought it was those super criminal superhumans. My heart skipped a beat. 10 minutes flew by. Hayshaw's long-distance running in broad daylight attracted a lot of attention. But then, when they saw the direction in which Black Man was heading, people knew that it was something happening at Stark Tower. The speed of media is unparalleled. At this moment, the live broadcast has started. Tony, just go and die. The Stark Group will be renamed Stan Group, and I will sell the group's weapons all over the world. I will also kill your little lover and let you go to hell together. After more than 10 minutes of entanglement, making Obadiah Stan become anxious. Dozens of police cars were surrounding them, and many dart guns were pointed at them. If Tony hadn't been tangled up with him, those police would have shot him. It can't be delayed. Obadiah wanted to use words to break Tony's fighting spirit, but he still couldn't. Obadiah regretted a little, for he had known that he would wait until the weapon system was installed on the armor before jumping out. In that case, Tony would have died. He roared and hit whatever he picked up. If it couldn't hit Tony, he would throw it over and hit the police car. Obadiah hit Tony with words, and Tony didn't show any weakness. I don't understand why you are so stupid. As a member of the upper class of the United States, you don't know who I am. You don't know how powerful Master is. Even if you can kill me, you will definitely die. And you idiot, you must be so stupid to kill me and Pepper in front of so many policemen. That's why you would say such a thing. Your master. Obadiah's heart trembled. As for the idiot, he simply ignored him. For Obadiah, who knew what was going on, Zhao Yu and Tai Sect were the swords above his head. But the arrow has to be fired. He was threatened to tell Tony what he had done. Although he might not, there is no airtight wall in the world. And the people over there are all scum, how can you put your trust in them? Sooner or later, Tony learns that his danger in Afghanistan was his own conspiracy. What difference will there be in the consequences? It's better to give it a try, what if it succeeds? As for Taiyaman, a wolf in front and a tiger in the back, what can be done? Obadiah used a roar to cover up his uneasiness. Your master, haha, so what? Isn't he awesome? Then why haven't you come now? When I kill you, I will give half of it to Tai Sect. Of equity, haha, I will definitely be safe and sound. Tony shook his head, showing pity. You don't know my relationship with the sect and the master, Obadiah, you will pay the price. He'll pay the price soon. A long roar came from far to near, and arrived in front of us in the blink of an eye. With a loud bang, Obadiah's steel armor was overturned, and he slid to the ground for more than 10 meters. He plowed a deep ravine in the concrete floor, and then hit the wall of the building with a loud bang. Half of his whole body sank in. Big brother, Peter, dressed as a black man, appeared in front of everyone. You're finally here. Tony breathed a sigh of relief, then raised his hands and complained, look, I'm like this. Peter shrugged. Who told you not to practice hard? Tony was speechless for a moment. Okay, it's my fault. Deal with him first, okay. No problem. Peter smiled slightly, ducked in front of the armor that was struggling to get up, raised his hand and punched, bang. The thick armor under the fist suddenly dented, and a crack rapidly expanded. Oh, this material is good. Peter smiled, not taking the steel armor seriously. He raised his leg and kneeled it to the ground. He jumped up, looking for the joints, and rained down fists. While everyone was stunned, within a few breaths, the armor was dismembered by the black man. In the end, only a bare body was left. He grabbed an alloy plate on the chest of the steel armor, pulled it hard, and it fell off with a click. The already sluggish Obadiah was revealed. Hey sir, you can come out now. Peter squatted on the armored chest, grinning. By the time Harry arrived, the incident was over. Obadiah was handed over to the police directly by Tony, in broad daylight, and because Tony was mindful of Obadiah's contribution, he did not deal with him harshly or even touch him. As for Peter, he didn't care. Anyway, this was the matter of his senior brother Tony, and Tony had his own opinion on how to solve it. The three brothers were chatting in Tony's private office. After a short chat, Natasha, Coulson and Barton arrived with Captain America. Look, Tony said. Official agencies always appear last. Is this a sign of status? As a joke, he stepped forward and hugged Natasha and others. Are you here too? Who is this? Natasha smiled and said, sorry, I'm late. This is. She laughed. You may not believe it. Let me introduce you to Captain America, Steve Rogers. Tony and the three of them were all turned to stone. Peter screamed strangely, his face immediately showed admiration, and he stepped forward, Captain America. Fifth junior sister, are you going to lie to me? Steve gave a gentle smile. If there is no one else named Steve Rogers, then it is me. Wow, Peter quickly grabbed Rogers' hand. Captain, do you know how much I admire you? Howling Commandos, Captain America. Wow, you are my idol. I still have a lot of your cards at home. Quote. Steve was slightly uncomfortable. He didn't expect that besides Coulson, there were also ardent admirers. Tony looked up and down. Should I call you uncle or uncle? Ah, Steve opened his mouth. Just call me Steve. Tony breathed a sigh of relief. Although you are an old man, you look too young. If you call me uncle, I would have trouble saying it. Steve didn't care about Tony's teasing tone. He shrugged. Actually, my mental age may not be older than yours. I was only 24 when I was frozen. That's true. Tony was stunned. Next, they talked about what happened today. I think, knowing that we are the same, as long as there is no problem here, Natasha pointed to her temple after listening to Tony's story, he won't dare to mess around. Don't talk about Obadiah, even the White House. Patton shook his head. They don't dare. Unless, Coulson pondered, he has a reason to kill you, or he has to kill you. Killing Tony will mean facing our Tai sect. Facing Master, there is no escape from the word death. Harry thought about it and suddenly said, in other words, even if he doesn't kill Tony, he will still die. He must not don't do this. Hearing Harry going back and forth about the word death, Steve frowned and said, if he is guilty, the judge will judge. Captain, you haven't understood yet. Harry said, for some people, the law is not binding. The key is that you may not understand the relationship between us and the Master. He is also a teacher, a father, and a disciple. Tony touched his forehead. Although it makes me a little uncomfortable to face someone who looks younger than me as a junior. But I feel very good now. Has a backer. Steve frowned. Law. Tony interrupted before he could finish his sentence. Mr. Captain, you should say these words to those senior officials. In fact, we all know that many of them are those who have repeatedly violated the law. Obadiah Yaw's identity is unusual, and I was killed by him. If I didn't have a disciple, the law wouldn't be able to do anything to him. The captain was silent. Tony then said, Obadiah has a reason to kill me, so what is that reason? And his steel armor, how can I tell that it smells like me? He looked up. Pepper, have someone dismantle that bulky thing immediately, I want to know its detailed structure. Okay. Pepper walked out. When I was kidnapped in Afghanistan, I conceived and built a simple armor. After I came back, I originally planned to improve it and build a new one. However, as everyone knows, because of the sect, I stayed in it for 2 years. it just started in the past few days. I didn't expect that Obadiah has already made it. Tony walked back and forth twice and suddenly said, Obadiah's armor has not yet been equipped with a weapon system, otherwise when Peter arrives, he may see my body. In other words, he is in a hurry. This machine, the armor, may have been successfully manufactured just now. According to the efficiency of the Weapons Research and Development Department laboratory, I am sure that it will take about 2 months to invest all resources to manufacture such an armor, which means, in other words, the time when Obadiah started building this armor was roughly the same as the time when you came back from Afghanistan. If you think this armor has your flavor in it, then, Coulson speculated, said, where did he get your technology? Afghanistan, Tony said decisively. I know. When Ethan and I left that ghost place, we blew up the rough armor. However, because the master put a diamond talisman on the armor, the shell and the overall structure may not be the same. It was not completely damaged, leaving some wreckage. And he got the wreckage. From whose hands did he get it? And in such a timely manner. No wonder he wants to kill you. The captain interjected. You said you were kidnapped in Afghanistan. I guess he may have been involved in this matter and was the culprit, and this matter will be exposed just recently. A group of people made a complete guess about the whole matter through their words. It seems that Obadiah has long wanted to get rid of me. Tony sighed. I have always regarded him as my closest elder. Everyone was speechless. Peter said after a moment, people change. Yeah, people change. Tony pursed his lips. Forget it, now that it's like this, it's time to forget about him. But at least he has served my Stark family for 2 generations. I hope he is in prison. Let's live a better life. As he was talking, Pepper walked in quickly. Tony, the energy core of that armor is your arc reactor. What? Tony was stunned. Where did he get the arc reactor? Oh, I understand. No wonder he called me over in a hurry, but he disappeared. He must have taken this opportunity to go to my house. He had gone in and out of the villa. Permission. Tony, suddenly enlightened, quickly took out his cell phone. Jarvis. Jarvis's voice came from the phone. Mr. Did Obadiah enter my laboratory more than an hour ago? Yes, sir. He said you asked him to come and get something, and he took the arc energy reactor. Because you authorized Mr. Obadiah, I didn't stop him. Jarvis replied. Tony dropped his phone and spread his hands. The truth is out. Peter chuckled. Senior brother, you have to be careful in the future. With such a big group and so much money, there must be many people watching greedily. Tony nodded. Well, this makes me wonder about life. Who else is worthy of trust? Even my artificial intelligence. And me. Pepper held Tony's hand. Even though this matter was over, Tony, Pepper, Peter, Harry and Natasha were drinking and talking about other things. Peter said, I was just in class when I received a call from Miss Potts, which shocked me. I thought it was those super criminals who showed up again. I just thought, senior brother's pure young refining. Although the body boxing is only at the 3rd level, ordinary people are definitely no match for him. I didn't expect that this would be the case. Harry added with a smile. You may not know that Peter's cell phone suddenly rang, and dozens of pairs of eyes in the entire classroom looked at him. The teacher also said that his girlfriend was pregnant. Ha ha, so funny me. Peter's face froze. What did you say? The teacher said that my girlfriend is pregnant. I don't even have a girlfriend. After a pause, by the way, follow me out. He didn't say that your girlfriend is pregnant. Harry's face suddenly froze. Everyone laughed. Speaking of super criminals, Natasha said with a smile, New York has been terribly quiet recently. Maybe it's because of Master. They all left New York, but I'm still worried. Back then they were bullied into being too innocent. Take the demon lord away, maybe. The soul-eating demonic skill? Peter asked. Yes, Coulson said. That's what we are worried about. If that Chihin Taiwayuan demon lord teaches them the soul-eating demonic skill, I think we may be busy in the future. That's really bad. There are so many fools. If they all learned the soul-eating demonic skill, how many people would suffer? Tony couldn't help but say. But there's no way. Peter said helplessly. Master can beat that old devil, but it's not easy to kill him. Master said that if the old devil wants to run away, he won't be able to catch up. That old devil you are talking about. Chihin Taiwayuan demon lord. Is he really that powerful? Captain America has learned about the relevant situation, but has not seen it with his own eyes. Of course, Coulson said with certainty. Except for Captain UNM's Pepper, everyone else here has experienced it personally. Of course, Tony came a little late and may not have seen it clearly. Captain did not intuitively. That's because I don't know who was present at the time. Magneto and Professor Charles, these are all figures that give the White House a huge headache. But they couldn't even look at their master, Chihin Taiwayuan Demon Lord. I can't bear even one laugh. Speaking of this, I still have lingering fears. Barton had a look of horror on his face. That old devil laughed from an unknown distance, making all of us present have boundless killing, destruction and other negative desires in our hearts. What if Master hadn't been there at that time, we people would have killed each other. It's so terrifying. A laugh. All the plants around the farm have withered. Captain America had a look of disbelief on his face, and his throat was a little dry, so powerful. There is something even more powerful. With a casual blow, the space shattered like glass, creating a black hole. The super strong gravity scraped off a layer of the ground. I even thought I would die at that time. Master just snapped his fingers and the black hole disappeared. Okay, maybe I'm listening to fairy tales. Steve felt confused. I don't think we need to think about this. Peter said, sooner or later we will be that powerful. He does have strong confidence. Tony chuckled. Of course. Especially me, Tony Stark. Cut. Everyone raised their middle fingers. By the way, the military seems to have taken some action in the past few days. Natasha asked Coulson. They seem to be arresting someone. And they also found Blonsky. The military's big trouble is the Hulk. Coulson said. There was trouble a few years ago, but the military couldn't do anything about that uncontrollable guy, and he escaped. As he said that, Coulson looked at the captain. This has something to do with the captain. Steve looked confused. The Super Soldier Serum Project. Coulson said. In the past few decades, the military has not stopped researching in this area. The birth of the Hulk is closely related to it. Bruce Banner is Hulk. His father, a scientist in the military's Super Soldier program, used him for human experiments when he was very young. Later, Banner was accidentally exposed to gamma rays, and the two combined to become the Hulk. Quote. Steve frowned. They didn't take any defensive measures. The experiment was too hasty. How could it cause such trouble? You have to ask the military. We are not in the same system as them, and they will not let us interfere. Coulson shrugged. At this moment, Coulson was startled for a moment, then walked aside and put his ear to his collar. After a moment, he came over. Mr. Director just told me that Hulk appeared at Imperial University. Everyone was speechless. Does this mean Cao Cao has arrived? What does boss mean? Natasha asked. Just inform us that if you want to go, do it in your own name. To avoid conflict with the military. Coulson explained. Captain America stood up. Since he is a dangerous person and appears in the university again, those students are in danger, we must go. Go take a look. Peter looked at Harry. Harry shrugged. I've already asked for leave anyway, so I might as well go and have a look. The two stood up. Tony. Natasha looked at Tony. Tony shook his head. I don't have time. After Obadiah's incident, the group still has a lot of troubles to deal with. Everyone nodded in understanding. Then let's go first, senior brother. Peter waved his hand, and the group said goodbye to Tony and quickly went downstairs. Imperial University is located in the suburbs of Manhattan. Generally speaking, Tony's Ocean View Villa is on the west side of Manhattan Island, while Imperial University is on the east near the mouth of the Hudson River. By the time the group arrived at Imperial University, Banner had already fled. All that was left was a messy lawn, a few smashed armored vehicles and tanks, and puffs of smoke and blood stains. Most of the military has withdrawn, leaving only a small team cleaning the battlefield. These armored vehicles and tanks were all dismantled with bare hands. Captain America inspected it, pointed to the fist prints and footprints on the thick armor with a serious expression, and said solemnly, "This guy is really a dangerous person." Quote. It's so powerful. Peter clicked his tongue. I can't compare to him if I just use brute strength. The Hulk is very special. Coulson said. The angrier he is, the more powerful he is. And he is invulnerable and cannonballs can't hurt him. So the military has been unable to do anything to him. Why does the military want to arrest him? I don't believe that the military is doing it for the safety of the people. Harry curled his lips. Because he is very valuable. Coulson replied. The military has always wanted to extract his serum for use in research on the super soldier project. Slice. Peter shuddered, feeling horrified just thinking about it. Probably. Coulson shrugged. Fortunately, I have a master, otherwise I might not end up worse than him. Peter said thankfully. If the practice hadn't been exposed, they must have thought that something had happened to me, and they would have wanted to cut me into slices for study. It's really. In other words, the root of all this lies in the military. Steve frowned. The duty of the military is to protect the safety of the people, but what they did put the people at risk. They have betrayed themselves duty of. Captain, there are some things, it's good to know in your heart. Barton patted him on the shoulder. I think we need to think about the Hulk. Harry suddenly said. When this guy shows up in New York, it will be like this. In a densely populated place, the consequences will be serious. And the military has no way to deal with him, and it may be difficult for us to deal with this guy. The most we can do is hold him down. Go back and find Master. Peter made the final decision. So, can I go to Tiegate to visit? Captain America said at the right time. Why not? Peter grinned. Just when Peter and his friends were about to return to the sect, Xavier School for Gifted School received an uninvited guest. Is this how you welcome your compatriots? A blue-skinned man wearing armor stood in front of the X-Men and said slowly, as your ancestor, I think it is my duty to educate you. Professor Charles stretched out his hand to stop the embarrassed Colossus and Beast Hank, and looked at this man with a very solemn expression. Who are you, and what is your purpose here? Who am I? Ha ha. The blue-skinned man laughed wantonly. I said, I am your ancestor. You can call me Tianchi. Of course, my real name is Ensabanur. Let me introduce, I was the first mutant to awaken mutant abilities in Egypt 3,000 years ago. Egyptian mummy. Colossus wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and sneered, you should go back to your pyramid. This is Xavier School, America, New York, not Egypt. I'm here to save you. Apocalypse ignored Colossus' sarcasm and said leisurely, all living things are evolving, but humans are not. Although they have invented the so-called science, they have become helpless. Chicken power, their evolution is wrong and degenerating. But we, mutants, should be the masters of this world. We have the power to surpass those ants, we have smart brains, we have both. He opened his arms. I know that you, Professor Charles, the X-Men, you are the mainstay of mutants. Now, I sincerely invite you, Professor Charles, to become my knight, to conquer the world for me and conquer mankind. X-Men, you look at me, I look at you, and then you look at Apocalypse, as if you were looking at an idiot. He said he was a person from 3,000 years ago. Did he sleep too long in his brain? Scott pointed to his forehead. Everything inside turned into shit. Maybe a few corpse bugs. Beast Hank added. Presumptuous. Apocalypse glanced at him with a cold glance. I am here for the future of our mutants, how dare you laugh at me? You. Charles stopped the policeman and spoke slowly. Mr. Apocalypse, you are not welcome here. Although you are very powerful, I am not powerless to fight back. You can leave. Finally, I will give you a piece of advice. We are also human beings. Remember, if you want to disrupt the peace of the world, we won't sit back and watch. Apocalypse clenched his fists and looked at Charles's calm eyes. A trace of hesitation flashed in his heart. This bald man's spiritual power is very powerful, and even he dare not ignore it. Moreover, this guy has so many helpers. Once he starts taking action, it may be difficult to please him. The key is that he woke up too suddenly and didn't have the power he had at his peak. Tianchi faced the vigilant gazes of Charles and others, sneered and said, you can leave. But I have a question, and you must answer me. 2 months ago, he stretched out his finger. In this area of New York, a powerful mysterious force broke out, spanning half the planet and waking me up. Charles, can you tell me what happened? Charles was slightly startled, and the policemen behind him each looked at each other, and their hearts suddenly became clear. It turns out that the mummy was awakened at that time. If you want to know the reason, you can ask about a place called Ghost Farm, where you will find the answer you want. Cyclops said directly. Really, Ghost Farm? Apocalypse chewed for a moment with flashing eyes. then smiled leisurely, jumped up, flew into the sky, became invisible, and then disappeared, leaving only one sentence: "One day you will be obedient to me, slave." Charles kept looking at the sky until 5 minutes later, then breathed out slightly. He left. Charles nodded. "Leave. But we must be careful next. This apocalypse has great ambitions and he will not give up." Chin considered it for a moment. "Does he need to inform Tai sect?" Professor Charles paused for a moment and sighed. "Of course." Peter and his party took a car all the way to the farm. The farm has been completely renovated after being renovated by the government. It is quite different from its original appearance. Not only were there 2 more houses, but a helicopter landing pad was also built. "Since we have this helipad, the government and SHIELD will fly right over if they have anything to do," Peter introduced. "I also plan to ask Master to use the elixir to exchange a helicopter with the government to experience the feeling of being a rich man, but Master said, we can fly by ourselves in the future." He spread his hands. The government or SHIELD are eager to get the elixir. Helicopters are nothing in their eyes. Harry curled his lips. "My senior brother and I have told Master about this. We will buy helicopters and donate them to the sect." I wanted to use the door, but Master also refused. Master faces money and enjoyment just like facing the sand on the beach. Raven walked out of the villa. "She will look after the farm today." Everyone chatted for a while, and those who didn't know each other got to know each other. "It seems you have something to do today," Ruiwin said. "Otherwise there would be such a big group." Peter nodded. "I have something, and I want to find a solution with Master." "Then you go in. I have to guard this place and receive any visitors who may come," Ruiwin said. "You go about your business." As he spoke, he unknowingly entered the Tai cave. Captain America looked around and said in surprise, "Is this another dimension different from the outside? How did we get in? How did we get from one dimension to another?" Peter spread his hands. "You can only ask Master this question, we don't know. The clouds are shrouded in mist, and there is a misty feeling. It's really strange." Steve sighed repeatedly. "It seems that your master, Mr. Zhao, is indeed very powerful. I can hardly imagine it." As they spoke, the group climbed up the stairs and arrived at the gate of the sect. "As direct disciples, we must be able to push the door open by ourselves in order to enter and exit the sect at will," Peter said with a smile. "I remember that when the senior brother heard the master's decision, he cried with sadness, not to mention how pitiful he was." "Same." Natasha laughed. "I heard that this stone door requires 2.5 tons of thrust to open, so I thought I would not be able to do it in 3 months. But we did it, didn't we? And it was ahead of schedule." Barton was a little envious. "I can't do it yet. Even if I use boxing skills, the explosive power can be doubled at most, which is only 2 tons. In Master's words, this is called fate." Peter patted Barton on the shoulder. "But now that you have joined the sect, there will always be opportunities in the future, right?" Barton nodded. And Captain America arrived at the door at this time. He asked to pick up his sleeve and tried to push it, but it didn't move. "Then stick to it sideways, push it with your shoulders and gradually start to exert force." 3 points, 7 points, Steve's face turned red, his veins were exposed, and even when he used 9 points of force, he still didn't move at all. He gave a deep drink, burst out at 12 points, and finally heard the sound of rocks rubbing against each other. "Amazing." Several people applauded and cheered for the captain. There is a lot of controversy about how strong Captain America is, but in detail, it should be 1 to 2 tons. Gritting his teeth, using all his strength, and bursting out, it's not surprising that he can push the sect's door open a little. After pushing the door open just enough for a person to pass through, the captain retreated due to exhaustion. He was breathing heavily. "You have only practiced this technique for 2 months. What else?" Peter said. "Captain, you only got 1 injection, which is much faster than us." The captain didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But what Peter said was right. He just took a few injections, not just 1, but only a few minutes, and it became like this. Cindy Moon stuck her head out from the crack of the door. "Hey, who are you?" "Captain, can you push the door open?" "Mutant." She took turns guarding the door today, and her eyes moved to Peter and the others. 2nd senior brother, 3rd senior brother, 5th senior sister, and Barton and Coulson, why are you all here? "Captain America." Peter stepped forward and introduced. the superhero from World War II, my idol. Cindy held the stone door and pulled it gently, and it opened. She stepped in front of Captain America. Are you really Captain America? You should be almost 100 years old, right? So young. Are you the same as my master? Captain America was a little embarrassed by her curious gaze. Maybe. Really? Cindy blinked. Then are you as powerful as master? The captain spread his hands. If possible. Master is in the back hall and has not shown his face for several days. Cindy led them all the way to the front of the apse. She stepped forward and stretched out her hand, about to knock on the door, when Zhao Yu's faint voice came out, "Come in." Cindy took the opportunity to knock on the door instead of pushing it. "Let's go." In the hall, Zhao Yu sat cross-legged under the Dao map, with stars in his eyes. He looked at Captain America, nodded to him, and then said, "What's the matter?" Peter stepped forward. "Master, let me introduce to you." Zhao Yu brushed his sleeves. "I know it as a teacher, Captain America, Steve Rogers." His eyes fell on Captain America. "You have been frozen for 70 years, how do you feel now?" Peter and the others were already used to Zhao Yu's unknown prophet. As for Captain America, he thought Nick Fury had told Zhao Yu. Okay. Captain America hesitantly reached out his hand. He always felt that it seemed inappropriate to shake hands with this man in robes. Zhao Yu didn't mind, shook hands with him, and then said, "You guys come to see me together, there must be something going on. Let's talk." Peter then told what had just happened to Tony and what happened to Banner. Zhao Yu listened and said calmly, "Tony's matter is just a small matter, you can solve it yourself. As for the Hulk, no wonder the luck value of 2000 suddenly increased a few hours ago. It turns out that this is what happened. Iron Man's first hurdle, the eldest disciple, Tony, and the second disciple, Peter, all participated, so it is not surprising that they have gained such a harvest." He thought for a while and said, "This man is extraordinary. The more angry he is, the stronger his power. His body is strong, not easily injured, and heals quickly. With your current ability, it is really difficult to deal with him. However, this man is also a pitiful man who can't help himself. What happened to him was actually not from his original intention. As a teacher, I can turn my palms to suppress him, but as a teacher, I have to meditate. No time." But Peter and others looked confused. Zhao Yu chuckled, stretched out his palm, and saw a pure red light wandering in his palm. The light was hazy, yet clear and red, but I couldn't really tell what it was. "This is my master's magic weapon that transforms blood into magic sword." As Zhao Yu opened his mouth, the red light that kept wandering around in the palm of his hand grew in the wind and turned into a 2-foot short blade. The blade was like a pool of the purest blood, with a flickering light, very clear, and no evil aura visible. However, the evil spirit of this magic weapon is suppressed and cannot be released. It is hidden deep in the knife, and its power will only explode when it is used. "Blood-transforming divine sword," everyone shouted. "Yes, the blood-transforming divine sword." Zhao Yu chuckled. "This treasure is specially designed to break the physical body. It is the powerful physical body trained by the 9 revolutions Zongong. If the fire is not enough, it will be injured. Although it is not genuine, but it's easy to deal with the Hulk. This blood-transforming divine sword is another reward that Zhao Yu received for completing the main mission of Phase 2. It's not a genuine product. The genuine blood-transforming divine sword is an acquired spiritual treasure. It kills immortals just by chopping melons and vegetables. This blood-transforming magic sword is only a treasure of the magic weapon level, but under the heavenly immortals, even the earthly immortals who return to the void can be injured if they are not prepared. As for the Hulk, using this treasure to kill him is actually overkill. The Hulk's strength and body strength increase with anger. Maybe when it reaches its limit, it is possible to withstand the blood-changing sword. But the magic weapon can only be used by lightning and flint. Where can we give people time? With one knife strike, the account was settled directly. Zhao Yu held the treasure and stamped it with a talisman of condensed mana before handing it to Peter. "You are holding this treasure just in case. My teacher also said that the Hulk is a poor man. He can if you don't hurt him, don't hurt him. Once this treasure breaks a person's body, all the energy, blood and soul will be hurt by it. It is too powerful, so use it with caution." He thought about it for a while, then took out the Tai treasure seal. Use this treasure first to suppress it and bring it back to the sect. If there is an accident, use the blood-transforming divine sword. Peter was so excited that he quickly took the Tai seal, holding a magic weapon in each hand. He looked left and right, and he was actually very happy. Zhao Yu smiled faintly. After all, you have not cultivated magic power. Apart from the Tai treasure seal and the blood-transforming divine sword, you can only use them once. If you use them twice, half of your mental energy and blood will be sucked away, which will damage your vitality. Be cautious. He also said, you hold the Tai treasure seal. If you want to use it, just throw it out. And this blood-transforming magic sword, because of its fierceness, has been marked with a talisman for the master. Before using it, you must get pure yang. The power of the body refining fist can break the talisman, just find the target and release it. Peter took it to heart. I understand, master. Zhao Yu nodded slightly, then rolled up his sleeves and said, my teacher wants to meditate, so you can go ahead. After everyone left, Zhao Yu fired a burst of magic power and closed the back hall door with a bang. Your master, well, is very different from ordinary people, Steve said. Everyone shrugged. Of course it's different. If it were the same, how could I be a master? Now that we have these two treasures, the Hulk won't be a problem. Peter smiled and raised the blood-transforming magic sword. If he doesn't accept it, I'll give it to him. Harry patted his shoulder. I think you should be more careful. Didn't you listen to the master? This knife is too powerful. Be careful to suck out all your mental energy and blood. How is that possible? Peter said proudly. Having the Tai treasure seal is basically enough. You may not even need the blood-transforming magic sword. This is best, Steve said. Bruce Banner is also a victim, and he should not pay a high price for it. In the hall, Zhao Yu was pondering. According to Peter and others, the current experiences of Iron Man and the Hulk almost overlap in time. Zhao Yu was not worried about Tony. In the movies before time travel, Tony was in danger many times. That was because he was just an ordinary person, and because of injuries and other effects, he caused some trouble. But now, Tony is much stronger than ordinary people. There is also a group of junior brothers and sisters to help, so no problem is possible. As for the Hulk, Zhao Yu's mind changed. Now that the Imperial University incident has passed, he should go to the doctor named Mr. Lan and plan to eliminate the Hulk in his body. This move had quite an impact. In the original movie, the Abomination and Big Boss were born as a result of this incident. Hate. Zhao Yu frowned slightly. Is it Bronsky? He suddenly remembered it briefly. It seems that it was Blonsky who, because of the Hot Hulk's power, coerced Dr. Blue and injected him with Hulk's serum, turning him into an abomination. Now Bronsky has become a registered disciple of the sect, much stronger than he was before. But, Zhao Yu thought of Bronsky's paranoia about power and character flaws. The Hulk is still much stronger than him now, and it doesn't rule out that he will follow the same old path. He had no expectations for Blonsky. Nature is easy to change, and character determines the future. Bronsky is that kind of person, and he is destined to follow the old path without external intervention. But Zhao Yu didn't care, he was just a named disciple. Although he gave him some impression, that was all. He has too many character flaws, is not a good candidate for Taoism, and has no future, so just let him go. Natasha and the others all said that Bronsky was still involved in the military's operation against the Hulk, and it seemed that it was indeed doomed. If you are obedient, you will just do it. The sect will have one more thug. If you are disobedient and want to cause chaos, you will be killed with one knife. The key is how much luck the disciples' participation in this incident will bring to me. If Bronsky becomes an abomination, how much luck will he bring to me? All thoughts disappear in a flash. Just when Zhao Yu was about to continue practicing diligently, Xindi left and returned outside the palace gate. Along with her, there were two other people with a slightly familiar aura. Zhao Yu's heart moved, and he connected to the sky, and he already knew who they were. Come in. The door opened and Cindy walked in with Scott and Aurora. Zhao Yu looked at them. Hello. The two exchanged words, and Aurora got straight to the point. The professor asked us to come and say hello to you. Oh, there is a man named Apocalypse. He claims to be an Egyptian from 3,000 years ago. He is the first mutant in the world to awaken mutant abilities. Aurora said. He was created by your battle with Chihuntai Wuyuan Demon Lord. Awakened by fluctuations. Oh, Zhao Yu nodded flatly. Scott looked at Zhao Yu's dull expression and felt angry for no reason. He said, he will come to trouble you. Trouble me. Zhao Yu smiled lightly. Are you sure? Scott wisely shut up. Zhao Yukai said, has he come to you? Aurora nodded. He asked the professor to be his knight to conquer mankind and the world. He is a madman. But Mr. Zhao, madmen often do things unexpectedly. I think you should be more careful. Well, thank you for informing me. Zhao Yu's tone did not change at all. If he wants to come to me, then he can come. Then he said, what about you? My original promise has always been valid. If you are willing, you are welcome to participate in the entry trial at the same time next year. Maybe, Aurora said noncommittally. You already know about Tianchi, then we will leave. After saying that, he and Scott turned and left. Looking at their backs, Zhao Yu showed a smile that was hard to detect. He could tell that at least Aurora was tempted. When the sect recruits disciples next year, there will definitely be people from Xavier School. After swiping Cindy away, Zhao Yu began to ponder again. Of course Zhao Yu knew Tianchi. He was the biggest villain in the movie that had just been released on the eve of the time travel. The first mutant in the history of Marvel's Earth, he has multiple mutant abilities, and he is indeed a powerful guy. But unfortunately, mutants' abilities always have innate limitations. It's actually not difficult to deal with him. Zhao Yu is in urgent need of luck points now. The 3 yuan qi refining method is a huge pit. The basic part has a luck value of 100, and all the methods on the 9th level of the qi refining stage cost 10,000. Although Zhao Yu has redeemed all the methods in the qi refining stage, these methods still account for less than 1/10 of the content in the first volume of the 3 yuan gui yi refining method. This supreme Taoist code, below the level of immortals, only has 1 volume. The content of the qi refining stage requires 10,000 qi luck points, the spirit transformation stage requires 100,000, and the various methods of returning to the void to the earthly immortal require 1 million. Taken together, this volume is worth 1.11 million luck points. It's scary just thinking about it. In addition, as a sect of cultivating immortals, and even if it wants to grow into a sect in the future, cultivating immortals and various arts, all these are indispensable and need to be completed. Although as Zhao Yu's cultivation becomes more and more sophisticated, he can master many low-level things and complete them by himself, but he still relies heavily on luck. Low-level techniques can be completed by oneself. As the cultivation level becomes more advanced, as long as the disciples are not caught up, it can meet the needs to a certain extent. But there are more needs in the process of spiritual practice. For example, refining alchemy and refining weapons. Most of the materials for alchemy are easy to find and can be exchanged for seeds once, but what about the materials for weapon refining? Many disciples have not yet established the foundation, but once one of them succeeds in establishing the foundation and acquires magic power, there will be an urgent need for magical weapons and magic weapons. To refine magic weapons, especially some rare materials, you can only exchange them from the system. And scarce materials are incredibly expensive. All in all, the luck value is never enough. It may not be urgent yet, but as the sect grows, this urgency will become more and more urgent. Zhao Yu could not wait to cause many things on Earth right away, and then let his disciples get involved in them to earn luck points. But it is a pity that according to Zhao Yu's calculations, it is impossible to advance to the divine stage before he can officially start to implement the plan. He sighed slightly. All kinds of calculations popped up in his mind, making him lose his mind to practice. He walked out of the back hall, strolled through the courtyard, and arrived at the service hall. Book. Zhao Yu called Ben out. Tell the people from the government and shield stationed in the sect that from now on, Tai sect will double its external transactions. Although Ben didn't understand why Zhao Yu suddenly made this decision, he nodded without asking. Later, Zhao Yu called the 6th disciple Matt over again. Matt Murdock, Daredevil. Since becoming Zhao Yu's personal disciple, this blind man with clear mind has remained unknown. He doesn't talk much. Except for necessary things, he spends the rest of his time practicing diligently. Among the group of direct disciples, he is one of the best when it comes to hard work. Master. Zhao Yu asked him to sit down cross-legged. My master called you here today. There is something I want you to do. Matt nodded. It's like this. Zhao Yu said. As you improve your cultivation, the qi refining realm has become vaguely visible. When you reach the qi refining realm and refine your magic power, you will have a need for magic weapons and magic weapons. In order to avoid that, caught off guard, the teacher must start preparing now. The teacher has already doubled the elixir transaction to the government and shield, and will gradually increase it to obtain more money. And this money, in addition to the sect's normal expenses and other expenses, are used to hoard various materials. Gold, silver, copper, iron, etc. What you have to do is to be responsible for hoarding materials. Zhao Yu continued. Among the 8 of you, each has his own personality, but when it comes to calmness, you are number 1. I leave this matter to you. Don't worry, Master. And you have been practicing in the sect for a while, so you should go out and have a look, don't always be so silent. Now that you have embarked on the road of pursuing the Great Road, there will be a long time to come, so you must keep your soul alive. Otherwise, over time, it will turn into stone. After you go out, go to your senior brother to stock up and purchase materials. It will be much easier with his help. I understand, Master. Zhao Yu added. You go to the service hall first. This matter should be regarded as a long-term sect task. In addition to the sect's own acquisition of materials, other direct disciples and registered disciples can also be involved. How to do it specifically, let's discuss it with Ben. The material issue is important. Zhao Yu just planned that if ordinary materials could be solved with money, luck points would not be used. As for what you can't buy with money, you can exchange it from the system. Here is a list. Zhao Yu handed Matt a list. The above is the various materials needed by the sect. In addition to the weapon refining materials, there are also some precious medicinal materials. You can take them and let me use them as well. Let's publish the sect mission. Okay, Matt took the list and said, but Master, why not trade directly with the government and shield? It should be more convenient to trade with them. Zhao Yu smiled and said, it is of course convenient to trade with them directly, but the demand of the sect is too great. It is iron essence. Normally, 1 ton of steel can be refined to 1 tael, but to refine the most common flying sword, so the amount of refined iron required can range from tens of kilograms. Furthermore, this is a question of initiative. Now they are asking me for help, and you should understand that this active and passive position will change. This is not a good thing for the sect. Matt understood and nodded. I know what to do. After swiping away Matt, Zhao Yu calmed down and silently began to practice. Material. Tony took the list that Matt handed him and read it carefully. Did Master say how many are needed? Although the Obadiah incident just happened, Tony acted quickly, and with the help of Pepper, a very capable confidant, the Stark group was quickly stabilized. Many directors on the board of directors still had opinions about Tony shutting down the weapons department, but it was a foregone conclusion. Tony was too determined, and the upper-level people all gave in considering the power behind Tony. The weapons department was shut down, and the energy department was established. It won't be long before the arc energy reactor is launched. Then Matt came with the list. There is no limit, Matt said. Master decided to hoard materials for future planning. We have advanced to the refining realm and have mana, so we will have a considerable demand for materials. This is to prepare for a rainy day. Tony nodded. I know this. Master once mentioned to me that the materials required for weapon refining are very demanding. Yes, he said 1 tael, that is, 50 grams of iron essence, which requires 1 ton of steel to refine. And a flying sword requires at least dozens of kilograms of iron essence. Although I don't quite understand what a flying sword is, I knowing how big the demand is for steel. We 8 brothers and sisters, assuming that each of us has a flying sword and 20 kilograms of iron essence, we need 160 kilograms of iron essence. 1 kilogram of iron essence requires 20 tons of steel. 106 times 20, 3,200 tons. Tony flicked the list. Steel alone will cost 3,200 tons, as well as copper, gold, silver, etc., and other materials are also in great demand. And the flying sword is definitely not the only magic weapon. Matt said. Master's Tai seal is not a flying sword. And the blood-transforming divine sword. Tony added. The blood-transforming divine sword. When Peter and others went to Zhao Yu for help, Matt was not there. He didn't know that Zhao Yu still had the blood-transforming divine sword. Tony laughed. You must have been practicing boxing before, right? Matt nodded, confused. So Tony informed Matt about Peter and others' request for help. In order to deal with that big green guy, Peter asked for 2 treasures from the master. The Tai seal and the blood-transforming magic sword. Before you came, that kid just left my place. He looked so proud, he thought the magic weapon was his own. Matt laughed too. Although he is the second senior brother, he is still a child. Who says it's not? Tony laughed. But he won't be proud for long. When I advance to the refining realm, I will refine my armor into a talisman. Let's see how proud he is then. Fu Bao. Yes. Tony shrugged and handed Matt a glass of red wine. Drink some. Maybe you don't know that when Master accepted me as his disciple, his attitude was simply terrible. It's mandatory, you know. He said that if I could inherit the Tao of Talismans, he would let me be his disciple. You know, I didn't believe in any cultivation at that time. My attitude might not be good enough, so. Been beaten. Matt was amused. Ah, you can say that. Tony didn't want to say that he was under a curse, it would be too embarrassing. So he said, you all started with the pure yang body refining boxing, and I directly practiced the Chenkin talisman chi refining technique. This technique is very complete from body training, chi refining to spirit transformation. The 3 realms of the technique are very complete. Of course, I only have the method of body building and foundation building now. When I practice to the point of perfecting the foundation building, I will ask the master for the follow-up method. You may not know about the talisman. If I explain it from my understanding, it is probably another way to use energy. The lines that make up the talisman are energy circuits. It is so perfect that I can't help but immerse myself in it. As long as I have mana, being able to engrave permanent talismans, I can turn matter into energy, refine my armor into talismans, and then combine it with the weapon refining method. Master said I can put it into my body. Tisk, it's hard for me to understand how it feels to put a material, a very large armor, into your body. The realm has arrived. You will naturally understand it when you reach the realm. The 2 imitated Zhao Yu's tone and laughed. So, the flying sword should also be able to be put into the body. Matt suddenly said, let's imagine that the flying sword is hidden in the body, and then when you reach out, it flies out from the palm of your hand, or sprays out from the mouth, right? Isn't that weird? Tony shrugged. I think it's okay. Haha, but it's really magical. We have all started practicing now, and we all know some principles of meridians and acupoints. However, there is no concept of meridians and acupoints in anatomy, but it is real and it exists, and we can all feel it. I think that meridians or acupoints are like the sect's cave to the earth, attached to the body, but also detached from the body, existing in another dimension of the body. From this point of view, maybe the magic weapon being stored in the body has something to do with the dimension. It makes sense. Matt considered it for a moment and nodded repeatedly. It's like the soul, which exists in the body but cannot be seen or touched. Yes, Tony agreed. The 2 brothers seemed to have found a common topic that they couldn't finish talking about. As soon as they talked, the sky turned dark. I understand more and more the truth behind some of Master's words. Tony said, there is a big universe outside, and the human body is a small universe. There are countless dimensions in the big universe, and the same goes for the human body. Analyzing the mysteries of the human body, connecting the mysteries of the world, and perfectly integrating people with heaven and earth, this is really amazing. Master said that cultivation is not unscientific, but it can't be explained by science. Anyway, I understand now. The so-called science, especially the scientific system on Earth, is too low level. After all, it has only developed for a few hundred years. And cultivation, the huge system passed down to us by Master, has probably existed for who knows how many years. This is inevitable. Didn't Master say that those who advance to become gods and become Yuanshan will have a lifespan of 3,000 years? Then the lifespan of higher level cultivators must be longer. The lifespan of a cultivator is longer than the birth of a civilization. It takes a longer time to develop, and it is only natural that such a large and complete evolutionary system will be formed. Matt was also amazed. In other words, a cultivator is equivalent to a civilization. Tony sighed. Master often talks about the road of the Great Road, and this is really the road of the Great Road. We have enough time to explore any problem we don't understand. We have enough strength to ensure that we can keep moving forward. Let's encourage each other. Mutual encouragement. The two had a drink. Is it already dark? Only then did Tony realize that the lights were brightly lit outside. He said, I'm treating you to a treat today. There's a new Arabic barbecue restaurant on Broadway. It tastes good. Talk while eating. Let's talk while we eat. Hulk is in New York, and the military will not let him go. I think if something happens, it will happen in these 2 days. Peter told Harry and others with certainty. But Peter, it's already been an afternoon and it's almost dark. Harry complained. With this time, used in practice, my boxing skills must have improved a lot. And who knows that Hulk must be in the city? What if? What about hiding in the suburbs? After getting 2 sect magic weapons from Zhao Yu, Peter and others came out of the sect and went straight to Tony's place to show off, and then walked around Manhattan. We are here to protect the people, to act chivalrously, and to save all sentient beings. Can't we overcome this difficulty? Peter was dissatisfied. I think it's because of the Tai treasure seal and the blood-transforming divine sword, right? Natasha curled her red lips. Our second senior brother, are you eager to try the power of the magic weapon? Peter's face froze. Have you seen all this? We can all see it. Steve smiled. But you were right, even if you can only save one person, it is worth spending a day or a month. Idle, you still understand me. Peter found the organization and suddenly said with pride, if you are impatient, go back. I will go with the captain. Harry, Natasha, Barton, and Coulson looked at each other and said, it's getting dark. I'll stay with you for a while. Coulson spread his hands and said, working time is during the day. S.H.I.E.L.D. is off work now, so I'll join you. Several people from S.H.I.E.L.D. were originally sent by Fury specifically to deal with the Hulk. However, because of the military, it cannot be done in the name of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is equivalent to giving them a holiday and participating in this matter in their own name. It won't cause the military to cause trouble. The other two nodded together. Okay, I know you are a little impatient. Actually, I am a little too. How about we go to Broadway and listen to a concert? It's lively there after dark. Peter made a decision. Dr. Samuel, Blonsky forced the little doctor into a corner, with a ferocious face and a stern look on him. I just want to become stronger, stronger, stronger than that green monster. I think you can help me, right? Samuel was so frightened by Blonsky's eyes that his heart almost jumped out of his chest. He still dared to refuse. He nodded quickly. Yes, yes, I can, I can. Very good. Blonsky straightened up and sneered. I know you have Hulk's serum, give it to me. Samuel was startled. No, no, Hulk's serum is unstable, I'm not sure. Injection. Blonsky grabbed Samuel by the collar, pushed him against his head, took out a pistol with his other hand, clicked, loaded the bullet, and put it on Samuel's head. Otherwise I will kill him. About you. No, 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 you can't do this. I'll inject you, inject you. Blonsky looked at the trembling Samuel and laughed. In Brazil, he lasted about 10 minutes in the hands of Hulk before being knocked down. At Imperial University, he fought hard and was beaten half to death before he could hold on for even a minute. This further aroused Blonsky's extreme thirst for power. He wants to have more power and be fast, even if he pays the price. He wants that green monster to know that he, Blonsky, is qualified to possess such powerful power, not an angry and uncontrollable beast. In order to treat the severe injuries caused to him by the Hulk, the military injected him with a transformation agent, and then he found Samuel, the Mr. Blue who contacted Banner. When Blonsky was lying on the test bench, he felt extremely complicated. He was longing for and looking forward to the powerful power he was about to possess, but he was also uneasy. He thought of the sect and Zhao Yu. He didn't know if he would be rejected by the sect if he used this method to increase his strength, or if he would make his master unhappy. But then I thought about it and realized that the sect did not have similar rules, so I felt a little more at ease. After all, he didn't think that even if he gained the power of Hulk, he would be able to fight against the sect. The power of Master Zhao Yu has been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Especially people like him who are extremely thirsty for power or more and more in awe of the power that cannot be resisted. Then, the serum injection begins. Bronsky felt that incomparable heat burst out along his blood vessels, and his heart felt like a bomb exploding. Every inch of bone and every cell must be crushed. Pain, incredible pain. The muscles all over his body were bulging, and the blood vessels and veins were pulsing. The metal protective gear holding his hands and feet on the test table made a clicking sound, and was torn apart by huge force in an instant. Then, the test bed collapsed. With a muffled sound of gurgling in his throat, and accompanied by his rapidly enlarging and mutating body, Blonsky finally let out a huge roar and jumped up suddenly. Dr. Samuel looked at the monster in front of him in stunned silence, a huge body 3 meters tall, with fin-like bulges on its back, bony spikes emerging from its heels and elbows, and a body of light yellow skin like a frog. You, lie down, I will heal you, Ha ha. A dull laugh came from Bronsky's ferocious mouth. He waved his hand and swept Dr. Samuel away. Power, powerful power, ha ha. He was in high spirits and gradually losing his sanity, but he fluttered, hit and tore, and a big hole appeared in the wall, and he jumped down with one leap. What he didn't see was that a test tube containing Hulk's serum broke, and the serum fell down the wall of the test tube and onto Dr. Samuel's injured head. In fact, Banner and Blonsky worked together. Together with Betty, he met Samuel first and used the inhibitory drug made by Samuel to suppress the gamma rays in his body. Then, he was arrested. After he left, Blonsky followed. General Ross personally escorted Banner, and the helicopter flew across the night sky and headed straight for the military base. However, before he could go far, a request for help from his soldiers came through the communicator. This group of soldiers is actually the soldiers who followed Bronsky. They were the first to suffer when Blonsky jumped out of Samuel's lab. Your Excellency, General, Hulk appears on Broadway. Requesting support, requesting support. General Ross held the phone and looked at Banner, who was handcuffed in disbelief, then immediately turned back. Give me the picture. Right away, General. I saw, in the picture on the screen, a huge figure, accompanied by fire, raging on Broadway. The screams of the crowd, the flames of the cars, and the explosion suddenly caused cold sweat to break out on General Ross's forehead. Banner also saw it. He quickly came closer with Betty. After seeing the huge guy in the picture, he gritted his teeth. Is it your test subject again? General Ross was speechless. What should we do, General? The soldier next to him asked him. Assemble all soldiers to Broadway. Then he saw the huge monster chasing the soldiers, armored vehicles, and immediately said to the intercom, Soldiers, retreat. But in an instant, the screen was filled with spots. Inside the helicopter, there was silence. Everyone focused their attention on General Ross, but Ross's mind was in a state of confusion. I go. Suddenly, Banner spoke. Listen, this is the consequence we caused. I have to deal with him. Can you control him? Betty asked. Hulk. No, use him. Banner said seriously. General Ross took a deep look at Banner and took a breath. Go back the same way. The helicopter immediately turned around and flew toward Broadway. You're used to fighting and killing, music. Natasha shook her head. I don't know when it became dispensable. They were standing outside a concert hall. Peter suggested going in to have a look, but Natasha immediately rejected it. What about you? Peter asked the others. Harry was somewhat interested, but seeing that Captain, Barton and Coulson were not that interested, he didn't say anything. What a bummer. Peter began to grumble. Our second senior brother. Natasha said sarcastically. Don't you want to protect the people? How can you protect the people while listening to a concert? Peter touched his nose. Okay, listening to music can't protect the people, so let's walk. Just as he was talking, there was a sudden noise hundreds of meters ahead, followed by gunshots and explosions. None of them were ordinary people. Their hearing and eyesight were all extraordinary. When they looked up, they saw the figure of a huge monster in the fire at the end of the street. Hulk. Peter immediately became energetic. Come on. Without saying a word, he ducked and rushed over. The others looked at each other and quickly caught up with the 8 immortals across the sea, each with his own method. Tony and Matt were eating Arabic barbecue. While eating and drinking, they talked about topics related to cultivation. They are on the second floor, next to the window. The chaos caused by Bronsky's sudden jump immediately attracted the attention of the two. The two people quickly got up and came to the window, and saw Bronsky's transformed hatred at the first sight. This is not the Hulk. Tony knew what Banner looked like after his transformation, but this one was obviously not the Hulk. He frowned. What other monster has the military researched? Us. The crowd here is dense. This monster has caused too much impact and must be stopped. Is that Peter and the others? Tony said, seeing Peter and others speeding towards them from the other side. Sorry, I can't see. Matt shrugged. Go down first and then talk. The two of them stomped downstairs and rushed out of the door, just in time to meet Peter and others. Peter, Tony yelled. Peter looked sideways while busy. Senior brother. And sixth junior brother. He was overjoyed. Just in time, Hulk is messing around over there, let's go together. Tony and the two disappeared before their eyes before they could reply. Then Harry and others caught up. Why do you two senior brothers seem to be different people today? Tony spread his hands. Is it because of the magic weapon? Otherwise, Natasha replied. Then really feel it, Matt said. I have always had great expectations for the magic weapon. Although he can't see, except for his eyes, his other senses are very sharp. Same. Tony was also very interested. Peter was extremely fast, and even with countless obstacles on the street hundreds of meters away, cars and chaotic crowds, nothing could stop him. In just 10 or so breaths, it was right in front of me. Suddenly, Peter's heart moved and he quickly stepped away. There was a boom, and something unknown fell from the sky, smashing through the concrete on the street and creating a spider web-shaped pit. Peter stepped back, looked up at the sky, and saw a hovering helicopter. Suddenly, I heard a soft click in my ears. When I lowered my head, I saw a huge green hand stretching out from the hollow in the ground. He screamed strangely and jumped away. At this time, Tony and others caught up. Hulk lifted up the broken ground and jumped out of the pit. He glanced at Tony and the others, then turned around and focused all his attention on the approaching abomination not far away. After removing the pieces of clothing from his body in a few seconds, Hulk panted heavily, roared in a low voice, and walked forward to meet him with steps like a mountain. Peter was stunned. He looked at Abomination, then at Hulk, and said in surprise, I've never heard of two Hulks. Tony said, the one crawling out from your side just now is Hulk, that one is not. Are they also a military experiment? Steve finally caught up. He exhaled with a solemn look on his face. These guys are too destructive. He said, we must first evacuate the crowd, rescue the injured, and confine the two of them here to prevent panic from spreading. This way, Coulson said. Captain, you and we will evacuate the crowd and rescue the injured. He sighed. Maybe there are not many injured. Hateful, giant monsters like this are wreaking havoc, cracking the ground, collapsing walls, and flying cars all over the sky. Ordinary people are affected and have little chance of survival. Then let's, Barton said, surround these two guys. Tony said to Peter, let them be captured, otherwise I will use my magic weapon. Several soldiers were divided into two groups. Coulson and Steve went to evacuate the crowd and rescued the injured lucky ones. Tony, Peter, Harry, Natasha, Matt and Barton, the six of them immediately headed towards the two giants rushed over. By this time, Hulk and Abomination had already fought. Like two giant humanoid robots, they are full of destructive power with every movement. The streets, houses and cars on both sides of the streets were grabbed and beaten every time they took turns. As for the rules, there is no such thing, but there is a different kind of shock. The most intuitive manifestation of power. In just a dozen breaths, a section of the street that was 20 or 30 meters long was already in a mess. It was like being washed by cannonballs. From the scene, it seems that the Hulk is basically in a position of being beaten, not only because he has just been injected with inhibitory drugs and has difficulty exerting his strength, but also because the abomination he faces is even more powerful. Although his sanity was affected, Blonsky still had reason. He has reason and has practiced Broken Jade Fist to the level of hatred, so his fighting ability is really not weak. Every punch and kick was filled with explosive and tearing punching power, and as he gradually became familiar with this more powerful body, Bronsky became more and more proficient in the boxing techniques, and the bone spurs all over his body had considerable strength. The lethality. When Peter and others gathered around, Hulk was covered in injuries. He was being pushed down on the street by the hated Blonsky and was beaten wildly. He punched Hulk so hard that he became dizzy and fell into the concrete ground. Hey, Peter, carrying his backpack, yelled, I think you could stop and listen to me, okay? Bronsky, who hates it, was startled and raised his head, second senior brother. Peter and others were all stunned. You are Blonsky. Patton recognized Abomination's identity first. That ferocious face still had some of its original appearance after all. As for Barton, he and Bronsky were both registered disciples, and the two of them were at about the same level of cultivation, so they were more familiar with each other than anyone else. Boom. Blonsky stops, but Hulk doesn't. He struggled and punched Bronsky away. Hulk. The Hulk roared and jumped forward to pounce. Hulk, Peter yelled, I told you to stop, do you hear me? In fact, Hulk also has reason. Banner was not idle during this period in Brazil, and he was injected with inhibitory drugs, which made his reason stronger. He paused, looked back at Peter, growled at him, and rushed forward again. Seeing this, Peter ran to catch up, stretched out his legs to hook Hulk's big feet, and Hulk suddenly fell over. Peter, hatred attracts people well. Not far away, Tony laughed loudly, be careful. Sure enough, the Hulk stood up, turned around and faced Peter directly, with his hands spread out like a big hen with wings spread, and he seemed to be planning to kill the spider with a spider in his arms. Peter's face was speechless. He shrank suddenly and disappeared from the Hulk's eyes. Before Hulk could show his doubts, he had already arrived at Hulk's side, and with the help of Hulk's pounce, he pulled him away. Holding his arm to the side, another big horse fell down. Careful, Blonsky, what are you doing? When Tony and others spoke, Peter didn't feel the crisis behind him. However, he lowered his head to avoid the sharp punch coming from behind, and then pushed his body upwards. Like an old bear hitting a tree, his shoulder slammed into the chest and abdomen of hatred, sending this guy flying straight away. Compared to brute force, maybe Peter can't compare to Abomination now, but compared to boxing skills, Abomination is 2 ways behind Peter. Just like that, Peter stood in the middle, followed by Hulk and Abomination. Tony and others saw this and quickly gathered around. On the helicopter hovering above, Betty's face was full of anxiety. She was condescending and saw everything about Banner's situation. I was beaten by hatred before, but before it was over, another group of people came. It seems that he is not friendly to Banner. Dad, let's go down. General Ross nodded silently and ordered, get down. General Ross already recognized that group of people. First there was Tony, a guy familiar to the whole United States and even most of the world, and then there were several people from S.H.I.E.L.D. He knew that these people were all disciples of the Tai sect. Things were out of control for him now. Especially the interference of Tai disciples almost made him blind. The guy behind them was so powerful that even though Ross was known as General Thunderbolt, he would never dare to offend him. Now he even has to worry about the consequences of Hulk and that monster injuring the Tai disciples. Who knows, that guy named Zhao will settle the score with the army. The helicopter lands on the street and General Ross and Betty get out of the helicopter. Second senior brother. Haha, I am better than you now, you should call me senior brother. Hatred got up, rubbed his chest and abdomen, and said fiercely, Master is partial, I am not worse than you, why are you the direct descendants? Disciple, and I'm just a registered disciple. Your skills are better than mine, and you have more elixirs than me. Why, this is his partiality. He said that I have an extreme personality, flaws, and am too obsessed with strength, but isn't that what cultivation is? For power, Peter, and Tony, and you. You are no match for me, I am the senior brother. Oh, Tony shook his head and laughed. Bronsky, right. Although you are a registered disciple, I really don't remember you. Master is partial. You should go to Master and tell him, do you dare? Then he said to the brothers beside him, it seems that the Master has specially talked with him. You see, he looks like a monster now. No wonder the Master said that he has a character defect. If it were me, tisk tisk, with such power, I wouldn't even look at it if it was thrown into the sewer. Bronsky was irritated by Tony's sarcasm and said, Tony, you trash. The best exercises and the most pills, you only cultivated them like this. That's mine. Master should give it to me. Roaring, he killed Tony with excitement and anger. The Hulk was left hanging for the moment. He had some sense and did not take action. Instead, he looked at Peter and others with confusion. Blonsky. Peter's expression became very solemn. Whoever the master accepts as a disciple is the master's principal. You said something wrong about the master in front of our brothers and hurt the senior brother. Are you going to betray the master? It seems that today, we have to use master's magic weapon. Vronsky stopped his feet and roared, "No, I will not betray the teacher. It's you are all useless, you are not worthy." He turned around and saw Peter taking off the backpack on his back and taking out 2 magic weapons. Tai treasure seal. As a sect disciple, who doesn't know the sect's symbol, the Tai seal? He became even more angry. Master gave you the Tai seal too. It's not fair. This is mine. He has gone crazy, Tony said speechlessly. The Tai sect belongs to him, right? No wonder Master doesn't accept him as his direct disciple. Such an extreme character. Harry shook his head. Master said that those with character flaws and inability to uphold their souls are not suitable for the path of cultivation and will become possessed. Look, come on, he's gone crazy. Such people are too harmful to society. The captain came over at some point. When you feel frustrated, you blame other people and take revenge on society. Everyone nodded in agreement. All evacuated. Barton interjected. Coulson also came up, just watching the fun. He said angrily, "Maybe seeing that these 2 guys haven't done anything, I won't be afraid anymore." "It's okay. The army and police are here," the captain said. "If the army and police are useful, what are we going to do?" Tony chuckled, looking sideways at General Ross and his daughter who were walking towards them. "This is all their fault." General Ross stepped forward. "This matter is a military matter and has nothing to do with you Taiyaman." Before Tony and others could speak, the captain retorted, "This is the people's business, and everyone has the responsibility to safeguard it." "Who are you?" General Ross looked sharp. "Shield Advisor, Captain America, Steve Rogers." Coulson said, "Captain America." General Ross and his daughter were puzzled for a moment, and then both looked in disbelief. Chapter 91. I said, "Now is not the time to watch Captain America." Tony said, "Look at the power of Master's magic weapon." He pointed to the field. Everyone focused their attention and saw Peter holding a blood-like blood-transforming magic sword in one hand and holding the Tai seal in the other. "Vronsky, you must return to the sect immediately and accept the punishment. Otherwise..." He glanced around. "The sect's rules are not to kill innocent people indiscriminately. Vronsky, take a good look at the good deeds you have done." The many damaged vehicles in the ruins far and near were all caused by Vronsky's unscrupulous actions, and the battle with the Hulk affected the unlucky guy. Those who are still alive have been sent out by Captain and Coulson before. All that was left were dead bodies. 0, at least 20 or 30. Return to the sect. Vronsky was startled. No. I won't go back. Master will definitely punish me." His eyes suddenly fell on Peter's hands. "Magic weapon, by the way, magic weapon. Put it on. Give them to me. With the magic weapon, I won't be afraid of Master." "Ha ha, give them to me." "That's crazy." Tony sighed. "What's wrong with this man? He thinks he won't be afraid of the Master after getting the magic weapon. How did he grow his brain?" Everyone spread their hands, expressing their incomprehension. Maybe he doesn't quite understand what the magic weapon means." Harry hesitated. "I once heard the Master say that after the magic weapon is refined, it will become one with the soul, unless the magic power and realm exceed the Master's, or there is something more. A mysterious magic weapon, otherwise it will never be taken away." "Then let's see how he takes it." In the field, the hateful faces became more ferocious, as if they were possessed by evil spirits, roaring and pounced on Peter. The Hulk on the side also roared, and seemed to be planning to pounce on him even if he didn't agree. Peter shouted, "Hulk, don't move." Then, he shook his hands and threw the Tai seal. To hit him with such a small stone. Outside the court, the Ross father and daughter were confused. Even Tony and others were puzzled. Even Harry, who had been protected by the treasure seal, could not imagine how the treasure seal could hit someone. But before anyone else could express their doubts, they saw the treasure seal slipping out of Peter's palm, spinning in the air, and instantly bursting out with 5 colors of light: red, white, green, yellow, and black. With a flash of light, a small piece of time and space was frozen. Vronsky suddenly changed from extreme movement to extreme stillness, and his whole body stood frozen in midair with a leaping posture. It was as if a big invisible hand was squeezing it, unable to even move its eyes. The Tai seal is the treasure of the sect's luck control and has endless magical uses. As the Tai sect has gained a firm foothold and its luck has grown steadily, the power of this treasure has become increasingly powerful. The magical effect of suppressing time and space can be used to some extent. The treasure seal can hold hatred in place, and can grow in the wind. In an instant, it turns into a huge one with a radius of 3 feet, and it is covered with a seal in Dutu. There was only a snapping sound, as if there was no contact, but the sound was heard. The treasure seal turned into a small seal. With a flash of light, it circled in the sky and turned into a 5-color flying rainbow. It instantly fell into Peter's hands. Looking at Bronsky again, he had already fallen to the ground and resumed his human form. Died. Peter swallowed, stepped forward and tried it on Bronsky's nose, feeling slightly relieved. Fine. At this moment, others rushed forward. The captain first laid his eyes on Bronsky's head, and then said doubtfully, "There are no scars." Wonderful. Now I finally know what the magic weapon looks like. It can grow bigger. I'm so looking forward to it. I must quickly advance to the chi refining realm and have a magic weapon of my own. On the side, the Ross father and daughter were stunned, and even the surrounding police, army, and onlookers were stunned. So, what's going on? In addition to doubts, there is only surprise. As for the Hulk, he glanced at the treasure seal in Peter's hand again and again, showing a rare cautious look. After sending this guy back to the sect, how do you think Master will punish him? Peter said. Thinking over the cliff at the top of the mountain. Natasha said, but I don't think thinking over the cliff will have any effect on this guy. Once he transforms, he is invulnerable and cannonballs can't do anything to him. The cold wind over the cliff is used as a hair dryer to fix his hair. Tony said seriously. As he was speaking, Matt, who had been silent, suddenly raised his head and looked at the roof of a building not far away, and shouted, "Be careful." Matt, who is blind and aware, suddenly senses a strong crisis and directly locates the source of the crisis. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction pointed by Matt. They vaguely saw a figure on the roof of the building. An invisible force immediately enveloped everyone. The power of the mind. Tony yelled, "He's going to control us." Peter. Tony had personal experience with the power of the mind, and when he reacted immediately, he shouted at Peter. The moment before Peter was invaded by the power of his mind, he used his strength in his palm to break the talisman and suddenly activated the blood-transforming sword. In the next moment, except for Tony and the Hulk who looked struggling, everyone else's eyes became blank. Tony can resist the power of the mind, it's because of the curse. This spell actually became his protective umbrella at this time. And others, including the Hulk, were greatly affected. However, the blood-transforming divine sword was activated after all. The red light of this magic weapon flashed, and a hole opened in the void. It plunged into the void and disappeared in an instant. With the next 10,000th of a flick of the finger, the magic sword suddenly flashed out on the roof of the building. The red light then turned, jumped out of the void in the blink of an eye, and fell into Peter's palm. Less than half a breath away, everyone woke up again. He is dead and his breath has disappeared. Matt froze and said something. Is it Professor Charles? Tony took a breath and frowned. As far as I know, there is no one else who is good at controlling others with the power of the mind, except him. Just take a look and you'll know. Natasha looked angry, kicked off her feet, and ran towards the building. Who is Professor Charles? The captain suddenly came to his senses, with a look of fear on his face. Can he control people's minds? Thinking of what he had experienced at that moment, the captain felt horrified in his heart. If someone controlled his mind and did all kinds of horrible things, it would be even worse than killing him. Hulk. At the same time, a huge roar sounded in everyone's ears, making their minds buzz. The Hulk broke free from mind control, and then exploded. His eyes no longer had any sense at all, they were all covered in green. This guy has lost his mind. Tony yelled, trapped him. Suddenly, the war broke out. The Ross father and daughter retreated one after another, and the remaining people, except for Peter who was holding the magic weapon, including Coulson, all rushed towards the violent Hulk. Everyone showed off their magical powers and surrounded the Hulk like a spectator, using fists and kicks, up and down their hands, only to hit the Hulk, who was dazzled and overwhelmed. In just a moment, I didn't know how many punches and kicks I received. I wanted to fight back, but I was confused and didn't know which one to hit. This is the result of being irrational. However, there is no benefit in being rational. The Hulk roared repeatedly, danced his arms wildly, and jumped up and down, which also made Tony and others frightened. Step aside. Suddenly, Peter, who was standing aside holding a magic weapon, shouted, "Look at my magic weapon." Everyone jumped away when they heard the sound. The Hulk had no opponent for a while, with a daze on his face. Then, a large seal swiveled around, and the light caught it, and covered it with one seal. "This is what happened, Master." Peter and others sat cross-legged in the hall, surrounding Zhao Yu. Surrounded by two guys who had woken up, Bruce Banner and Emil Blonsky, plus a withered corpse. Next to them are General Ross, his father and daughter, and Captain America. General Ross insisted on coming, claiming that both Blonsky and Banner belonged to the military. And Betty, naturally because of Banner. She was afraid that Banner would be harmed. Peter and other disciples talked to each other, and in a short time they understood the whole story one by one. After hearing this, Zhao Yu nodded enigmatically and said calmly, "Master, I understand." Then he looked at Peter. "Where is the magic weapon as a teacher?" Peter chuckled. "Master, how about letting me play for 2 days? Just 2 days, and I will definitely give it back to you." Zhao Yu raised his brows and stretched out his hand to make a weak move. 2 rays of light flashed from the backpack behind Peter, breaking through the space and falling into Zhao Yu's hands, turning into a treasure seal and a short blade. In full view of everyone, the treasure seal turned in Zhao Yu's palm and turned into a speck of light, falling into his palm and disappearing. The short blade turned into a small blood-red snake, swam around in a circle, plunged into the palm of his hand and disappeared. Peter slapped his mouth. "Stingy." Zhao Yu put his palms into his sleeves and glared. "If you don't reach the realm, what good will the magic weapon do to you? Besides, is the magic weapon for fun? The blood-transforming magic sword is extremely powerful, and this corpse is a warning. If you are not careful, you will die. You've hurt yourself, but you still want to play. You want a magic weapon. Well, practice hard." Peter's neck shrank and he didn't dare to speak. Zhao Yu then moved his eyes, first at Banner, who looked a little worried, then at Bronsky, who was bowing his head in silence, and finally landed on the corpse. Although this corpse has dried up, it can be seen that it was originally tall. Wearing a strange armor, cloak, and blue skin, Zhao Yu immediately understood his identity. Apocalypse. Dressed up like this, it matches the ability of mind control, and there will be no one else. Apocalypse is dead, and his death is extremely useless. At the moment before his death, he probably didn't expect that he would die like this. To be honest, Zhao Yu recognized Tianqi's ability. Extremely powerful, except maybe a few mutants, such as Qin who awakened the Phoenix power, he is more powerful than any mutant. If he fought head-on, excluding any other factors and using only his own abilities, Apocalypse in his heyday would probably be no worse than a monk in the realm of God transformation. But mutants are mutants, born with powerful abilities and powerful limitations. When he doesn't activate his mutant abilities, he's not much stronger than an ordinary person. When encountering a powerful magic weapon like the blood-transforming divine sword, he was killed with just one strike without even risking a single blow. Zhao Yu was glad in his heart that he had given Peter the blood-transforming sword, otherwise things would have been in trouble. At least a few disciples were controlled by this guy and became thugs. This was not bad, but if 1 or 2 died, or even the entire army was wiped out, it would be tantamount to a slap in the face of Zhao Yu. At that time, no matter what, Zhao Yu had to go through it himself, which led to some variables. Looking at the corpse, Zhao Yu secretly thought, "Well done. This is the apocalypse." Zhao Yu said. "The first mutant in the history of the Earth awakened in Egypt 3,000 years ago." 3,000 years. Everyone was shocked. Yes. Zhao Yu nodded slightly. "My teacher once said that mutants have congenital defects in their mutant abilities. This person is very powerful and has special mutant abilities. He can absorb the abilities and even lives of other mutants. When he was about to die, he chose a mutant and transferred his consciousness or soul to this person, thereby taking away abilities and extending his life. In this way for 3,000 years, he became the most capable and powerful mutant. but it could not delay the withering of the soul. Originally, this person had been sleeping for the past few hundred years, but the mana fluctuations caused by his master's fight with Chihan Taiwayuan Demon Lord 2 months ago woke him up. Before that, he had already been there. Xavier School for the Gifted. I must have accidentally seen the fight between you this time, thought it was of some use, and planned to control you to do things for him. No wonder, Tony thought thoughtfully. I thought it was Professor Charles. Professor Charles is a pacifist, Coulson said. He seems to have never done anything excessive with his abilities. Rui Wen on the side heard this and sneered. That's just because you don't know. Raven was once so close to Charles and Eric, but because of their differences in ideas, Charles actually wanted to control her. All that happened during this period became a thorn in Ruiwen's heart, which has not completely subsided after so many years. Zhao Yu glanced at Ruiwen, waved his hand, and stopped talking. He is very powerful. As long as he is properly prepared, he can take everything from other mutants. This gives him more and more abilities, and he has lived for 3,000 years. But no matter what, he can't suppress the decay of his soul. Therefore, the teacher often talks about the innate defects of mutants. Only through cultivation, like us, can we pursue the avenue and let the soul continue to enrich, qualitatively evolve, and sublimate from the inside out, is the truly correct path. While belittling mutant abilities, he also promoted the immortal Dao system to enhance the confidence of his disciples. This is what Zhao Yu should do. And Zhao Yu was right. Although the mutant ability is strange, compared with the immortal system, a firefly is compared to a bright moon. His eyes as deep as the stars then fell on Banner. Bruce Banner. Yes, sir, Bruce Banner. Banner replied in a low voice. Sir, please don't embarrass him, please. Betty on the side immediately begged. Zhao Yu was speechless, and so were his disciples. Did I say I would embarrass him? Zhao Yu glanced at Betty. Betty suddenly fell silent. I told them that you are a pitiful person. You have power that you don't want to have and cannot control. Zhao Yu said leisurely. Once this power breaks out, it will make you lose your mind and do many things that go against your heart. So, you want to eliminate him. Banner felt happy to be understood. Yes, sir, I hate it so much. Every time it comes out, it goes out of control and hurts many people, which makes me feel very guilty. It's not your fault. Zhao Yu shook his head and pointed at General Ross. It's his, your father, and the US government's fault. He looked at Banner. You have made a lot of efforts, exercised hard in some crude and superficial ways, endured all kinds of humiliation, just to suppress your anger, and even used some medicine without being sure whether there would be any sequelae. So, now do you think you succeeded? Banner shook his head in frustration. Power is not a mistake. What is wrong is the inability to use power correctly. Zhao Yu smiled slightly and pointed to his heart. Since you can't destroy it, why don't you try to accept it? No, Banner shook his head hard. I can't accept it. I can't control it. That's because you don't have the right method. Zhao Yu said with a smile. You can't control it because your mind and your soul are too weak. If your soul is strong enough, you can control your strength, refine it, and ensure that it will not go against your true intentions. The more you resist, the more trouble you will have. Zhao Yu said seriously. If you resist it, it will gradually break away from your soul and form another personality. When it grows to a certain level, it will devour you. At that time, you no more, only that angry soul remains. You no longer exist and are insignificant to this world. But it remains. What do you think the consequences will be? Please help me. Banner opened his mouth, extremely ashamed. Zhao Yu laughed and said to Tony and others, your junior brother has returned to his position. Tony laughed. I knew it. I know too. Peter chuckled. Banner looked confused. Hurry up and become a master. Harry urged. Master must have a way to solve your troubles. Banner suddenly understood, but he was a little at a loss. He didn't know how to become a disciple, so he just clasped his hands together. Banner became a disciple. With Betty's surprise, Ross's protest, and everyone's congratulations, he received Zhao Yu's teaching and was given a set of robes. Zhao Yukai smiled and said, control your anger, refine the Hulk, and make you the only one. But before that, you need to cultivate your body to be strong enough and your soul to be tough enough. When the time comes, my master will help you merge with Hulk. Thank you, master. Banner seemed to have found his destination. At this moment, his soul was extremely peaceful. Over the past few years, he has been hiding in Tibet, fearful of being hunted by the US military and worried about Hulk being out of control. He can't even meet his girlfriend. No matter whether you are happy or sad, if you go too far, you may release that guy. This made him suffer. But now, someone told him that he could solve this problem. This is real. His heart suddenly relaxed, as if the clouds were clearing and the sun shone brightly. Mr. Zhao. General Ross held it in for a long time and finally couldn't help it anymore. Banner is from our military. Not now, Zhao Yu said with a puff of sleeves. General Ross, your actions have caused my 9th disciples so much pain. I didn't ask you for an explanation. How dare you jump out? Ross opened his mouth and thought to himself, how could this man be so domineering? Zhao Yu glanced at him with such a sharp look, it was like a bucket of ice water pouring down from his head. Ross felt chilled and the hair on his back stood up. Except for Steve, your so-called super soldier project. Zhao Yu pointed at Captain America, who had been a spectator. This is the only successful example, what else? Nothing. Even the one used by Steve potions also have unavoidable hidden dangers, Steve knows this. Captain America nodded. Dr. Erskine told me at that time that the super soldier serum had the side effect of amplifying a person's personality. The better, like you, Captain America. The worse, like Hydra's Red Skull. Zhao Yu said. In addition, Banner's uncontrollable situation is also included. There are too few successful examples to be universal. We are still obsessed with this plan, spending a lot of money every year and ignoring the lives of the soldiers participating in the experiment. General Ross, do you think it's great? Ross was speechless. I don't comment on the method you choose. Zhao Yu said lightly, but I don't agree with obtaining power entirely through external forces. He then looked at Blonsky, who had been keeping his head down and said nothing. Bronsky, when you decided to use the Hulk serum, did you ever think that since the sect didn't have such rules, you could do whatever you wanted? Bronsky was silent. Zhao Yu nodded and then looked at the other disciples. Master, I will add this today. No one of my Tai sect disciples is allowed to gain strength by modifying the body through external means. Remember. Quote. Remember. Okay. Zhao Yu glanced at Natasha emphatically, then withdrew his eyes and landed on Bronsky. In fact, 99% of the ways in which various scientific and technological means are used to transform the body are through overdraft of potential strength. This is extremely undesirable in cultivation. While we cultivate and gradually tap our potential bit by bit, we must also find ways to deepen and enhance our own potential and heritage. Only with enough potential can we break through all aspects step by step. Only with such bottlenecks can you have the opportunity to witness the great way. And if you overextend your body's potential at the beginning of your cultivation, then I can tell you clearly that your path to the great way will be dead from now on. In addition, you must remember. When you practice, you are cultivating your true self. Keeping your soul and body pure is the principle you must keep in mind. Put everything into your body, especially things that are not in harmony with your body, will make your body and soul become messy, which will cause various bottlenecks and obstacles on the path of spiritual practice. Natasha has used strengthening potions, so she has always maintained her youth. But as a teacher, I can clearly see that her potential is shallower than that of other brothers and sisters. If she does not make up for it, her achievements will be minimal. Natasha didn't expect Zhao Yu to turn his words on her all of a sudden. Hearing this, his face changed slightly. Master, what should we do? Practice your boxing well, Zhao Yu said. Lay a solid foundation, stabilize the origin first, and then plan for other things. Then, where are they? Natasha pointed to Banner and Blonsky hesitantly. Banner is a special case. Zhao Yu shook his head. You 9th junior brothers have special physiques. Otherwise, you would find another person and use the same method to see if you can copy another Hulk. No, so, how the existence of K, instead of overdrawing his potential, actually deepened his potential. That's not fair, Bronsky said dully. Zhao Yu glanced at him. Fair? Blonsky, you keep saying it's fair, but what do you think is fair in this world? His tone became more serious and he said, nothing is fair. There will never be absolute fairness. He glanced at all the disciples. Why can you become my master's direct disciples? That's because you are different from others. This is unfair. But this is innate. Smart brain, special physique, excellent qualifications, deep potential, it's all unfair. If you want to be fair, Blonsky, you should talk to the laws of creation of this world. And you? Zhao Yu stared at Blonsky, making him sweat profusely. I have said before that I hope you can maintain a normal mind, but you can't do it. Blonsky, this is something you can't be like for me. The real reason for being a direct disciple is also the first reason why you are in this situation. When you first took the entry test, I thought you could pass it, but at the last moment, your mentality was unbalanced, leading to failure. And now, because of this, you are on the road to success. Wrong path. Your potential has been overdrawn. You are not Banner, you have no one-in-one chance, and you do not have a special physique. Your future is probably just like this. At most, you can develop your magic power and cultivate Qi. Realm, as for transforming into a god, don't even think about it. Bronsky burst into tears. This was a man who desperately longed for power, but Zhao Yu told him that he had lost the future he imagined, which was a fatal blow to him. Zhao Yu saw him crying bitterly, shook his head and said, if I had known this, why would I have done it in the first place? But it's good, it can be used as a lesson for future generations. Bronsky, you have violated the sect's rules, and you will be punished as a teacher. From now on, you have to think about your mistakes, and when you have calmed down the extremes in your heart, come and see me again. Then he said to Peter, take him to Siguyao. Peter stepped forward and grabbed Blonsky's arm, let's go. Mr. Zhao, you can't do this. Ross objected again. Blonsky is from the military, and he still has many tasks to perform. The military is not short of this one. Zhao Yu waved his hand and said, General Ross, Bronsky has a bad character and will cause trouble if he is released. He is from the military, but he is also a registered disciple of my Tai sect. In fact, it doesn't matter to Zhao Yu what Blonsky becomes. He was just used to give his direct disciples a lesson and let them understand what they could and could not do. The path of spiritual practice pays attention to a pure word. It doesn't mean that you can't practice multiple exercises and spells. No matter what skills or spells are practiced, they are all cultivated by oneself. There is no problem of complexity. Instead, it should be called Bo. The word, pure, refers to its own purity. The pure body and pure soul that originally belong to you. Many of the so-called extraordinary beings in the Marvel world achieve extraordinary things through external objects. They can survive when all kinds of messy things are stuffed into their bodies. It can only be said that they have good luck. An ordinary person would definitely die without a burial place. It doesn't mean that you can't borrow foreign objects. If you cultivate immortality, there are also systems such as elixirs and magic weapons. You can cultivate reality by borrowing fake ones. But whether it's elixirs or magic weapons, they all have to be suitable. Only use what suits you. There are countless magic weapons and countless pills. Except for basic and universal things like Jingqi pill, when it comes to the advanced level, every monk must have his own choice when it comes to the path. For those who practice the 5 elements Tao, give him a magic weapon of time and space, which will be of no use to him on the path. For those who cultivate the pure Yang Tao, giving him a magic weapon with deep demonic properties will pollute his own Taoism. Like Bronsky, using Hulk serum to transform himself has actually changed his own blood genes and abandoned his identity while overdrawing his potential. Speaking of which, he should be the impure son of Hulk or Banner. His own bloodline genes account for part of it, and Hulk's bloodline also accounts for part of it. Zhao Yu said it very seriously, but in fact it was just to beat other disciples. In fact, having 3,000 avenues does not necessarily mean that there is no future. In the system of cultivating immortals, there are also people who take the evil path. It is not impossible to refine the blood essence of the demon clan and eventually become a great human demon. Blonsky is somewhat similar to this. However, Zhao Yu has no intention of wasting resources on a registered disciple who has no Taoist heart at all. Sending Bronsky to Siguo Cliff was just to show his attitude in front of his disciples. If you make a mistake, you will be punished. Of course, in Zhao Yu's opinion, such a punishment was too light. But from the perspective of the disciples, it was very serious. They believe this is a deprivation of liberty. For Americans, freedom is greater than heaven. In fact, it is completely possible to expel him from the sect, deprive him of the Dongtian brand and abolish his skills and cultivation. But Zhao Yu didn't do this. He just sent Bronsky to Sigyu Cliff lightly. There is luck in it. Bronsky can at least allow Zhao Yu to harvest some luck points, as long as he still names himself as a sect. And he himself is insignificant in Zhao Yu's eyes. Whether he is chaste or not is just a matter of thought. In addition, of course there are other calculations, let's not mention them for now. Since you have joined my Tai sect and become my direct disciple, you should have a title. The second-generation disciples of our sect start with the character Tian, followed by Fu, Yang, Yi, Ling, Ying, Ming, Zan, and Du. You have tyranny and anger. With my strength, I will give you peace. I hope you can uphold your original intention and see your true nature clearly. Tianyang. Zhao Yu gave the ninth disciple the title, raised his eyes and said to Peter, "Your ninth junior brother Tianning will be taught by you." "Yes, master." Peter nodded. "It's over here. I'm going to have a retreat. Let's all go." Zhao Yu waved his sleeves. "It's true that God has no eyes." General Ross looked at the group of people gathered in the distance, laughing with hatred. That banner obviously belongs to the military. As long as Banner is captured and his serum is used, how many powerful warriors can be created? Of course, the side effects were simply ignored by him, even with Bronsky's experience. But now that fool has become a direct disciple of Tai sect. Even Bronsky, a sharp knife in the army, was detained. But with a great god like Zhao Yu controlling him, not to mention a mere General Ross, even the President of the United States could only knock his teeth out and swallow him. What can he do? Compared to Ross's resentment, his daughter, Betty, looked happy. Completely two extremes. Speaking of which, Betty has been torn between her father and her boyfriend. She neither wants her father to catch her boyfriend and slice him into pieces, nor does she want her boyfriend to hurt her father. You can imagine the hardships involved. Well now, Banner has joined the Tai sect, and the conflict with his father is no longer a problem. At this moment, her joy was indescribable. She wished she could immediately rush forward and hug Banner tightly to exchange her feelings, but seeing that Banner was communicating with his brothers, she restrained herself. How are Tony and the others such winking characters? I've seen it before. After communicating with Banner for a moment, they left in a hurry and gave time to Banner and Betty. After driving away a group of disciples, the Ross father and daughter, and Captain America, Zhao Yu began to count the harvest in detail. First, earn 29,600 luck points. Looking at the system records, the largest sum was 20,000, there were two others of 3,000, and the remaining one was 1,000, 4 were 500, and 2 were 300. Zhao Yu felt happy while thinking about it carefully. This biggest income is probably because of the mummy in front of me. Apocalypse, this character, is extraordinary. By killing him, all incidents related to him have been ended. The impact on the world is really not small, and it is reasonable to contribute 20,000 luck points. The next two incomes of 3,000 should be brought by Bronsky and Banner. Blonsky became an abomination and gained the aura of abhorrence. Naturally, as a registered disciple of the sect, bound by luck, he contributed this income to Zhao Yu. As for Banner and the Hulk, it goes without saying. As for the luck value of 1,000, it should have been contributed by Peter. In this matter, Peter used the magic weapon and made the greatest contribution. The remaining 500 are naturally the contributions of Tony, Harry, Matt, and Natasha. The 300 are Coulson and Barton. You should be happy to have harvested such a large amount of luck. After all, this is the largest harvest he has harvested at one time since he came to this world. Even the two-phased main quests did not yield as much luck value as this time. However, Zhao Yu was a little confused. He found that harvesting luck points seemed to be getting easier and easier, and the number was getting bigger and bigger. When Peter or Tony were first accepted as disciples, the system only gave a few hundred luck points, but here with Banner, it was 3,000. After consulting the system gave the answer. First of all, when Zhao Yu accepted Peter, Tony and others as disciples, they had not yet gained their own chi. The system rewards are naturally few. Secondly, as Zhao Yu's actions interfere more deeply with the world, the luck value becomes easier to obtain. For example, Blonsky this time, and the disciples who are becoming more and more famous. Now, they are participating in a more important event, and each of them contributes hundreds to thousands of luck points to Zhao Yu. It will increase in the future, and it is also possible to add thousands to tens of thousands. Zhao Yu was deeply pleased with this. As the level of cultivation increases, the amount of luck required to exchange various required methods, materials and even finished magic weapons from the system increases exponentially. If the disciples were still like they were at the beginning, only making a small contribution every time, what a waste of time. From this perspective, establishing a religious sect does not make much sense. The purpose of establishing a sect is to start from the aspect of luck and fortune and gradually seize the luck of this world. If there is no harvest, the existence of the sect is indeed meaningless. It seems that we need to increase our efforts to recruit disciples. The more disciples we have, even if we only have named disciples, the total number will not be small. 29,000 this time, plus the remaining 5,000, it's just 35,000. Zhao Yu secretly calculated it, and then said to the system, "The last time I saw a flesh and blood puppet, it was worth 30,000, right?" The system was speechless and only displayed the exchange light curtain in front of Zhao Yu. A 7th grade flesh and blood puppet with a luck value of 30,000. That's it. Zhao Yu made a decisive decision. After the words fell, a naked and majestic body stood in front of Zhao Yu expressionlessly. This body's eyes are dull, its face is indifferent, and its body is extremely perfect. Just one look at it gives people the feeling that it was born this way. He stood quietly in front of Zhao Yu with his hands tied, and the extremely powerful qi and blood smoke surged from his body. If this temple was not created by the possessor, I am afraid that this vast and blazing qi and blood breath would have broken through the sky. The 9th level of the mortal body. Zhao Yu looked at the flesh and blood puppet in front of him and took a deep breath. The strength of this 7th grade flesh and blood puppet is comparable to that of a monk in the 9th level mortal realm. The qi and blood are as thick as the Yangtze River, surging, and every move has tens of thousands of tons of divine power. Except that he does not have physical magical powers, everything else is the same. Exchange it for me for the 3 talents distraction technique. The 3 talents dividing method can divide a person's soul into 3 parts, 3 in 1, 1 in 3, a trinity. Every distraction is a complete existence, not a broken god, which is extremely rare. Therefore, this secret technique is worth 5,000. It is comparable to the value of the Chenkin talisman refining qi method in its entirety. 3 days later, an invisible ray of light escaped from Tai Cave, flashed in the sky, and disappeared thousands of miles away without a trace. Zhao Yu stood at the door of the back hall with a pale face, looked up for a moment, an unspeakable smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, then turned around and closed the door. I didn't expect it to be like this. My soul has long been scattered and integrated with my body. It's really difficult to distract myself. But it's worth it. Although I have lost part of my origin along with my body, my plan has finally begun to be implemented, and there are additional reward. Lying cross-legged on the futon, Zhao Yu smiled. 3 days ago, Zhao Yu redeemed the 3 talents distraction technique. After practicing it, he discovered that he was so different. The soul is no longer in the form of an ordinary person, but is dispersed in the body and merged into one body. The soul and body are one, regardless of each other. In order to get some distraction, Zhao Yu had to separate part of his physical body together. Not much, only 1/10, but it also made Zhao Yu extremely difficult. Needless to say, the pain when the true spirit and the physical origin were separated. Zhao Yu did not have no soul, but the soul and the physical origin were completely integrated, which he called the true spirit. Without his origin, his cultivation level was reduced by 10%. But fortunately, only 1/10 of the physical body's origin has little impact, and it can be gradually recovered, which can take up to half a year, and as little as 2 or 3 months. Not that it matters. The key is that his plan can be implemented. More importantly, the flesh and blood puppet, which originally had no potential and had fixed power, now has the ability to continue practicing after merging with Zhao Yu's physical origin. But Zhao Yu must now consider another important issue of his own, becoming a god. He has now broken through the 8th level of the mortal body in the physical realm, and the 8th level of energy refining in the magical realm. With the supply of abundant resources, and relying on his special physique, he will soon be able to reach the threshold of becoming a god. But even the soul has been integrated with the body and merged into a true spirit. How to cultivate the soul? Zhao Yu was a little confused about the road to becoming a god. Without a normal soul, how to cultivate the soul? But if you can't practice the spirit, how can you become a spirit? Fortunately, there is still a long way to go before becoming a god, so it is not urgent and I have time to think about it. In addition, besides taking the road of spiritual transformation by cultivating the soul, there is no other way to go. Specializing in cultivating the physical body is also a smooth road. Perhaps the method of chaos true body is tailor-made for this. However, in the early stage, the path of physical sanctification is not as good as the path of refining energy to become a god in terms of supernatural powers, spells, and secret techniques. Many secret methods cannot be used. This is a shortcoming for Zhao Yu. Therefore, he did not give up the idea of cultivating souls in the physical body. Zhao Yu has been aiming for this path all along, the Chaos True Body and fellow practitioners of the 3 Yuan Gaichi refining method. Orthodox monks often focus on the soul. The main reasons are, first, taking the path of physical sanctification. Generally speaking, there are special requirements for physical fitness. Second, it requires more and higher resources. A large amount of high-level resources are needed to replenish one's body in order to quickly strengthen the physical body. And Zhao Yu thought that relying on the system, as long as the plan did not go wrong, the luck value would increase more and more in the future, and important resources could be redeemed from the system. This is what he relies on. Although he has always been hesitant about the system, he will not be vague when it is time to use it. Use fakes to cultivate reality, and the system is no exception. Zhao Yu has lofty goals when it comes to cultivating a path. His goal must be to be physically powerful, to have boundless magical power, to have vast supernatural powers, and to be omnipotent. He has always followed his own path. Ordinary cultivation of immortality, such as the realm of qi refining, only requires building a foundation and practicing the first level of mortal body before you can advance to qi refining. Then he no longer pays special attention to the physical body, but focuses on the mana and soul. The body will only grow subtly under the nourishment of mana. Even if they reach the realm of becoming gods, the physical strength of ordinary monks is far inferior to that of Zhao Yu. People who have survived the catastrophe and become immortals often have physical bodies that are only in the Dharma body realm at best. For those who specialize in cultivating the physical body to become an immortal, their physical body must reach the realm of the immortal body. Of course, it is difficult to compare the pros and cons. If I have to make a comparison, the two are fighting. If the immortals who focus on the soul do not have the magic weapon or secret method to break the physical body, generally speaking, it will be difficult to kill the immortals who specialize in the physical body. But Yuanshan has the advantages of Yuanshan. Yuanshan is vast and has boundless power. It can do many things that those who specialize in physical cultivation cannot do. However, this is only the early and middle stages. In the later stages, all roads lead to the same destination. Regardless of the spirit or the physical body, in fact, they will all end up in the same place. It doesn't matter who is strong or weak. But often the process is important. For example, magic powers and magical flying swords are not actually necessary for the monk's ultimate goal. Because they cannot enable monks to achieve eternity. But they are needed. This is the means to protect the Tao. Without the means to protect the road, if you die on the way, how can you talk about witnessing the road? Therefore, Zhao Yu attaches great importance to this process. To ensure that he does not disappear halfway, he must have unlimited means to cope with any crisis. Whether it is the physical body or the spirit, one must be able to master all of them and master all of them. Daozu, this is not a joke. If you are only proficient in one area, what kind of Taoist ancestor you are? The immortal body, the immortal soul, the refining of talismans, the formation of elixirs, creation and destruction, the 5 elements of time and space, and the order of operation are all at your fingertips. Otherwise, how can you teach your disciples or teach you the truth? Even though Zhao Yu now finds that his path to the soul seems to be interrupted, he has not given up at all. On the contrary, he became more determined. More than a month has passed. It has been 2 months since I started as a disciple and passed the examination. It has been exactly 2 months now. Except for the unfortunate events of abomination, Hulk and Apocalypse, it was generally calm outside. After the previous incident, Professor Charles from Xavier School made a special trip to visit. This time his attitude softened a lot. Zhao Yu was naturally happy to see it. No matter what the reason is, the attitude of Charles, the leader of the mutants, represents the intentions of a considerable number of mutants. In addition, recently, when his disciples were out, saving sentient beings, more and more X-Men were getting involved, and Zhao Yu knew that Charles's stubbornness was being melted away. Zhao Yu was also pleased to say that, since the previous incident, the contribution of the disciples in harvesting luck values has become greater and greater. Now, more than a month later, Zhao Yu has gradually accumulated more than 10,000 luck points in his hands. It's a pity that this harvesting speed is slowing down. The reason is that the actions of the Tai sect's disciples have intimidated them, making fewer and fewer people dare to take the lead. According to statistics from outside media, New York's crime rate has dropped to historical freezing points. We can't say we don't pick up things on the road and don't close our doors at night, but the optimism of the overall situation is obvious to all. This also made the names of some disciples become more and more famous. For example, the Dark Peter, and Harry, who is inseparable from him and has been dubbed the Light Man. Bright Man. When Zhao Yu learned about this name, he almost laughed. Americans are not very good at picking nicknames. When Harry appears, he often wears a bright white outfit and a white scarf. He is black and white with Peter. Peter is called the Black Man, and he becomes the Bright Man. Maybe Americans also know that Baixia may be even more unpleasant. Anyway, it should be called Iron Fist Shocks New York, Hudson River Hero, something similar to Hedong Hero, Nan Marong Bei Chao Feng, etc. Of course, after the joke, Zhao Yu thought that the scope of activities of his disciples should be expanded. This is the way to harvest luck value in the next stage. But it can't be done for the time being. Without flying, the range of activities cannot be expanded. Only when the disciples advance to the Qi refining realm, cultivate magic power, refine flying swords, and be able to have fun in a wider range, will the harvesting of luck values become formal. Of course, Zhao Yu has other means, which he hasn't launched yet, so let's not mention them for now. Among the 9 direct disciples, Banner, who was the last to start, is still practicing hard and has no interest in anything outside. Except for meeting his girlfriend every 3 to 5 days, he spends the rest of his time focusing on reciting Taoist scriptures and practicing Kung Fu. Law. As for the other 8 disciples, Tony was focused on his armor and had almost disappeared from the public eye in recent times. Cindy is not interested in chivalry and righteousness, and has always stayed in the sect. Except for necessary sect tasks, she spends the rest of her time practicing hard. What makes Zhao Yu gratified is that her training progress has surpassed most of the others. Senior Fellow Apprentice, second only to Peter in realm, ranking second among the 9 disciples, Chunyang Body Refining Fist has reached the 6th level. Treating cultivation as a hobby is like water in a long river, flowing smoothly, which is extremely rare. Everyone else, even Zhao Yu himself, has an obsession and goal in practicing. Only Cindy didn't. She just simply likes to practice, loves to practice, and doesn't think about anything else. The purity of her soul has surpassed that of Matt. Zhao Yu is increasingly optimistic about the future of these 7 disciples. As for the other disciples, Matt is responsible for hoarding various materials for the sect, and he also does heroic deeds in his spare time, but he has much fewer opportunities to show up than Peter and the others. Ruiwen was not very interested in this either. She stayed in the sect most of the time, occasionally going out and doing whatever she could. Needless to say about Natasha, her profession is an agent and she has many tasks. During the mission, he also harvested luck points for Zhao Yu. The last Wolverine, Logan, has not been heard from during this period, but he occasionally contributed some luck points to let Zhao Yu know that he was still safe and sound. In addition to direct disciples, dozens of named disciples also made great contributions to Zhao Yu. The vast majority of these people are either soldiers or agents. When they go on missions, they are actually participating in certain events in this world. No matter good or bad, they will always contribute some luck. There is no doubt about this. Speaking of which, the fortune value contributed by the registered disciples is already comparable to that of the direct disciples. There are many of them, and although each of them does not contribute much, they also have many tasks for the government and shield, and the accumulation cannot be underestimated. This made Zhao Yu pay more attention to the registered disciples. Of course, among the named disciples, such as Punisher Frank, Hawkeye Barton, Coulson, and Fury, their contributions are actually not much less than those of direct disciples. Speaking of another named disciple, Blonsky, he escaped. Zhao Yu watched him secretly leave Sigyu Cliff, watched him secretly leave Dongtian, and kept smiling, as if observing the lines on his palm. All his actions were under Zhao Yu's eyes. Zhao Yu didn't stop him, why should he? This is exactly what Zhao Yu hopes to see. Otherwise, when he was punished in the first place, the Dongtian brand was directly deprived of him, and he would not be able to escape from Tai Dongtian even if he cried and screamed. Afterwards, Zhao Yu also issued a sect mission in the service hall, to capture Bronsky. On this day, Zhao Yu was answering some training problems for Magneto. Magneto King Eric has probably accepted his fate, and now he is working as a guard of his scripture tower, devoting all his energy to his cultivation. If you have enough elixirs, you can browse the exercises and combat skills in the Sutra Pagoda at will, you have time and energy, and you can seek answers from Zhao Yu at any time. In fact, in the entire sect, except for Zhao Yu, in terms of cultivation level, he came in third, behind Cindy and Peter. This Dialang Jin contains very exquisite force-generating techniques. Zhao Yu said, although it is just a rough creation, after cultivating to the highest level, under one blow, there are 9 gravity paths superimposed, either bright or dark, yin or yang, or bursting, or penetrating. The power is extraordinary. This Dialangjin is a combat skill created by Zhao Yu based on the water instinct magical power he obtained when he broke through the 3rd level of the mortal body. Following the principle that water is unpredictable and has many waves, the power movement technique of this combat skill is indeed quite advanced in the foundation building stage. To practice the taste, you must understand its true meaning. Zhao Yu said, go to the small lake at the foot of the mountain, stir the water, observe the impermanence of the water, and appreciate it carefully, you will gain something. Eric nodded thoughtfully. At this moment, Tony's voice came from outside the door. Before Zhao Yu could speak, the door was pushed open, and an armor flew in happily. Master, I succeeded. Zhao Yu raised his hand and grabbed it, and the armor that flew into the hall quickly with arrogance spurting from the soles of his feet stopped immediately. Then he pressed down weakly, and the armor fell hard on the extremely hard ground of the back hall amidst Tony's screams. 5 body cast. Master, Tony's extremely aggrieved voice came out from the armor. Zhao Yu took back his hand. Don't think that I don't know. 10 days ago, weren't you flying around New York with this armor? Now you ran up to me and pretended to be excited. Do you think what to do? Tony shut up immediately. He got up, took off his armored face, showed his face, and said with a smile, I was testing the performance of the armor. If I made a defective product, I would be embarrassed to show it to you. Zhao Yu waved his hand. Don't use those reasons of yours to fool me. Tell me, what's the matter? Eric, who was standing aside, nodded to Tony, glanced at his armor slightly, and went out. Master, Tony walked up with a bang. I can't wait to engrave the talisman on the armor, but you haven't even completed the physical training and foundation building. You haven't refined your chi yet, and you don't have any magic power. Zhao Yu finished half of his sentence for him and said, then practice hard and develop your magic power, and all problems will be solved. But I can't wait for Master. Tony lied and said with saliva, is there any pill that can quickly increase your cultivation? Yes, Zhao Yu sneered. There's more than one kind. That, impossible. Zhao Yu raised his eyebrows and raised his eyebrows. Aren't you embarrassed? As a senior brother, you must set an example for your junior brothers and sisters. The cultivation base catalyzed by the pill that directly enhances the realm is illusory. Are you thinking about it? On the way. There are no shortcuts in cultivation. Zhao Yu looked at him and said earnestly, now is the time to lay the foundation, and we cannot take shortcuts. The foundation is empty and the future is worrying. It is like building a skyscraper, the foundation. I know. Tony couldn't bear to listen to such preaching, and quickly raised his hands in surrender. I practice hard. Zhao Yu then nodded with satisfaction. It's good to know. The main purpose of the elixir that directly improves your realm is to give it to your relatives, friends and family members, and to the named disciples who have made meritorious deeds but are hopeless. As a direct disciple, your great senior brother, you must lead by example. Here we go again. Tony looked mournful. Master, I am 30 years old. Zhao Yu secretly laughed in his heart, but said calmly, at 30 years old, he is also a disciple of his master. The master and apprentice chattered for a long time before focusing on the armor. Zhao Yu looked at it carefully and nodded slightly. It's not bad. Just these 2 words, Tony said in disbelief. This is the work of your eldest apprentice who has worked so hard. Can't you praise it? What's there to praise? Zhao Yu said expressionlessly, I can make a magic weapon for my master better than this thing of yours. Tony was speechless. Zhao Yu observed it for a moment, then suddenly said seriously, Tony, my teacher, I want to ask you, do you plan to refine this thing into your destiny talisman? Tony nodded without hesitation. Be careful, Zhao Yu asked again. Prudent enough, Tony replied. Okay. Zhao Yu sat down and asked Tony to take off his armor and sit across from him. Since you have made up your mind, I won't say much as a teacher. Your armor is fully functional, and it is quite qualified as a talisman. Although you are still some distance away from the Qi refining realm, now is the time to make plans for advanced Qi refining. Your talent in cultivation is much lower than that of other brothers and sisters, but it doesn't matter. Since you are talented in the talisman, you can still witness the great path. After Zhao Yu finished speaking, he raised his hand and put a finger on Tony's eyebrow. I will teach you the blood refining method. Use your heart's blood to refine the armor. Once the sacrifice is successful, the armor will feed you back, allowing you to quickly advance to the level of energy refining. Tony closed his eyes and carefully understood the blood refining method in his mind. After a long time, he opened his eyes and said, Thank you, Master. Zhao Yu waved his hand. Master, let me make it clear to you first. This blood refining method puts a heavy burden on the body. Your pure yang body refining fist is only at the 3rd level, which is not enough. The consumption of blood and essence will damage the essence. It must be practiced to the fullest. At the 5th level, only the physical essence can meet the requirements of blood refining. Tony, you must ensure that you will never use the blood refining method to refine armor before the 5th level of pure yang body refining fist. Tony nodded solemnly, and then said with a smile, Master, I will never be careless about my body. Just don't be careless. Zhao Yu added, when you advance to refine Qi, my master will help you turn this armor into a life talisman. But what are your plans for the talisman spirit? Use your artificial intelligence or slowly cultivate new talisman spirits. The spirit of the talisman. Tony muttered. Master, I have thought about using Jarvis as the spirit of the talisman before, but I am not sure whether a virtual artificial intelligence can meet the requirements. This is another question I want to ask you. Question. Of course. Zhao Yu nodded in affirmation. Although artificial intelligence is just a false spirit created by technological means, it is far inferior to the real weapon spirit and talisman spirit. It is not a real means of creation, but if you can refine Qi if you are in a certain situation, let your natal talisman possess a talisman spirit. Even if it is not as good as the genuine talisman spirit, it can keep you one step ahead on the road. Don't worry about hidden dangers. As your cultivation level deepens and as your sacrifice deepens, false spirits will disappear, will grow and evolve into a real spirit. There is an 80% chance that the Fu spirit will transform successfully before becoming a god. After practicing the Qi refining method of Chenkin talisman, after advancing to the Qi refining realm, you need to refine your own natal talisman. The Qi refining realm is a basic realm for monks who follow the talisman to carefully cultivate and refine their natal talismans, until the advanced level of divine transformation can transform the talisman into a talisman. At this time, the natal talisman can be considered a small success. And if Tony, with the help of Zhao Yu, refines the talisman spirit of Jarvis's life talisman in advance when he advanced to refine his energy, even though it is one level worse than the real spirit, it will also put Tony one step ahead on the road. Stride. Before advancing to become a god, there is a great chance that Jarvis can transform successfully. Then, with the help of the enlightenment and spiritual enlightenment gained during the advanced stage of becoming a god, the Fuling can even take another step forward and reach the middle level. Hearing this, Tony breathed a long sigh of relief. Jarvis's importance to Tony is self-evident. He really hoped that Jarvis could always be with him. It's just that he is not very involved in cultivation, so he can't decide whether it is appropriate to train Jarvis into a talisman spirit. Now that he got Zhao Yu's affirmative answer, he felt naturally relieved. Relaxed, Zhao Yu glanced at the eldest disciple. Tony shrugged, why not? Remember, the 5th level of body training. Zhao Yu waved his sleeves and swept Tony and his armor away. Not to mention that Iron Man began to roam New York. Because of the particularity of his armor, the scope of his chivalry spread throughout the United States and even surrounding countries. This makes him Zhao Yu's most capable person in harvesting luck. But at this time, England, Britain was the center of the planet a century ago, and its heritage is extraordinary. There are all kinds of powers that are different from ordinary people, hidden in this small island country. Vampires, werewolves, even witches, and even the existence of some other non-human races. The Mandarin arrived in England after a long journey. He was in such high spirits that his face glowed red. As a big boss in the Eastern underground world, the Mandarin has a huge amount of power, and he is often followed by a large group of subordinates wherever he goes. But this time, he was alone. Just like an ordinary tourist, he hailed a taxi and headed to the outskirts of London. Half an hour later, he stopped in front of a manor castle hidden in the forest. After sending away the taxi, the Mandarin adjusted his clothes and stepped forward to press the doorbell. After a while, a lanky old man with silver hair, each hair carefully combed, led him in. Stepping into the manor, a different kind of aura suddenly surged into everyone's heart, stimulating all kinds of desires in his heart. It was a familiar aura. Lord Demon Lord, the Mandarin murmured enthusiastically. The old man who led the way said nothing and just led the Mandarin into the castle. In the hall of the old castle, at the head of a long table, a shadowy figure sat upright. The aura that surged like a tidal wave washed through the hall, but did not leak out at all. It only lingered and stirred in the hall. On both sides of the long table, there were people with strange shapes or ferocious expressions, tall and strong, or short and skinny. At this time, they bowed their heads and behaved like a group of primary school students. Lord Demon Lord. The Mandarin walked into the hall and immediately knelt down on one knee with fanatical admiration on his face. Qihan Taiwayuan Demon Lord. The indifferent voice struck directly at the heart and lungs, making the Mandarin unconsciously give up his heart. Sit down. Although the voice of Qihan Taiwayuan Demon Lord is indifferent, every word penetrates deep into the soul, carrying strong negative emotions. If anyone hears it, even the holy angels will fall when they descend to earth. However, no one at the scene could notice that underneath all the negative desires was an aura of extreme destruction. The Demon Lord's face was hidden in the shadows, as if separated by countless dimensions. Even those present here who have special abilities cannot see the true face of the Demon Lord. Very good, Demon Lord said. You are very obedient. I asked you to come, so you came. Originally, I wanted to swallow a few to fill my stomach. In that case, I gave up. The voice was calm, but it seemed to fall from the sky, treating all living beings as ants. Eat, of course. Many people shuddered, but many more showed even more fervent enthusiasm. Why did I rescue you from that old guy Tai? Even though you are just ants, you still have some uses. Demon Lord did not hold back any taboos, and his words were full of naked things. Now you tell me, are you willing to use it for me? Willing. The responses came in unison. No matter what they think in their hearts, no one dares to object. Very good. I just wanted to see the person who objected, so I swallowed him and gave him a beating. I didn't expect him to be smart. When the Demon Lord spoke, no one dared to make even the slightest sound. No matter how sinful he is always like an ant in front of the Demon Lord. Subconsciously telling them, whoever dares to speak out will surely end up with his soul shattered and dead without a burial place. Everyone cheered up and didn't dare to carry anything with them, but suddenly they heard the Demon Lord say, alas. It was actually a sigh, but it made everyone feel that they had no hope of life. Many people looked grim, and everyone was hopelessly depressed. I originally thought that I would come out of the mountain at this time, and this small piece of earth would be free to control life and death, and do anything. But I didn't expect that old guy Tai to crawl out too. Duanduan is extremely hateful. An incomparable hatred suddenly surged out of everyone's hearts, like water in the eyes of the sea, endless. I also admit that my cultivation is inferior to that old guy's, so I am no match for him. But if that old guy wants to suppress me, there is absolutely no way he can do it. Since that old guy has set up a sect, I will accompany him and do it well. A game of chess. Wait. A pair of eyes with infinite evil energy cast an extremely sharp light from the shadow. This is my chess piece. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat, and they all spat out a mouthful of old blood. They were all hurt by one look. I am willing to die for Lord Demon Lord. The Mandarin was the smartest one. He kicked the chair away and fell to the ground. The others all reacted and hurriedly crawled down, just like slaves crawling before their masters. Ha ha! The Demon Lord suddenly stood up. His figure was not ordinary, but it gave people a vast and boundless aura, overwhelming the sky. He laughed wildly. Okay. All spirits are like ants, but ants are also useful and useless. Since you are used by me, I will not treat you badly. Since Tai Lao Niubi established the Tai sect of Lao Shizi, I will establish the Yuanshi demonic cult. You all must listen to my orders and work for the Yuanshi cult. I ask you to die, so you will die for me and I will let you live. Only then can you live. Boundless dominance. The Demon Lord glanced at him. His gaze was like a mountain, and he shouted, Master Manchu, Jin Bin. The Mandarin and Kingpin were excited and responded quickly. Lord Mandarin, how dare you call yourself Lord in front of me? From now on, you will be called Xiao Manzi. Ah, the Mandarin was stunned. Without waiting for a response, a destructive force surged through his heart, and he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of old blood. Don't want to. The murderous intent was revealed. I wish. Under the crushing momentum, the Mandarin was like a small boat in a tsunami. He was horrified and kowtowed repeatedly. The Demon Lord then stopped and nodded slightly. I, the Yuanshi demon sect, have 2 demon kings and 4 demon envoys under my command. Xiao Manzi is the king of desire, Jin Bin, and you are the king of destruction. Lord Mandarin's pale face immediately turned red, and Jin Bing was no exception. For a moment, a kind of extreme joy for no reason filled his heart. Thank you, Demon Lord. Thank you, Demon Lord. The other people all looked at the two of them with envy and jealousy, wishing they could take their own lives in their place. At the same time, they are all looking forward to the candidates for the 4 demon envoys, hoping that the benefits will fall on themselves. As for the 4 demon envoys, the Demon Lord looked through the shadows and fell on the 4 of them. Cain the Red Tank, Marcus the Wolf King, Dracula the Vampire Count, and Amora the Enchanting Witch, you are the 4 demons. Cain the Demon, Amora the Succubus, and Amora the Witch. Marcus, the Demon, Dracula. The Devil, you two belong to the King of Destruction. The Succubus, the Devil, you two belong to the King of Desire. The Demon Lord flicked his red and black sleeves. Everyone, come forward. The 6 people stepped forward quickly, with the 2 demon kings in front and the 4 demon envoys behind. They lined up in 2 rows and bowed down together. Where is the King of Desire? The Mandarin took a step forward. I will give you the first volume of the Sutra of Desire Demons. By learning this method, you can master the 7 emotions of human beings and the desires of all spirits. It is your instinct to play with the mind, and it is your power to absorb desires. If you can break the 7 emotions, you will be transcendent. If you refine your desires and become the demon soul, you can witness the great path. The first volume of this demonic sutra is a method of training the body and refining chi. If you have made merit for me, I will give you 2 and 3 volumes. If you dare to disobey me, you will be given away. Hey hey. The Mandarin was so excited when he heard this. Suddenly, it was like a bucket of cold water being poured from head to soul, and his heart seemed to be frozen. He shuddered. I am willing to die for the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord just looked at him indifferently, raised his hand and put a finger on Lord Manchu's eyebrows, and then brushed Lord Manchu away with a flick of his sleeve. Where is the Lord of Destruction? Kingpin's huge body moved forward quickly. I will pass you on the first volume of the Great Asura Demonic Sutra. After learning this method, you will have unrivaled killing and boundless destruction. With the demonic energy of destruction, you will kill everything and destroy everything. If you can understand this true meaning and transcend destruction, you will be able to realize it. Shira demonic body, witness the path of destruction. He also summoned the 4 demons, the demon envoy and the demon envoy, and handed them a volume of the demon envoy's fighting sutra, the succubus demon envoy's Zon-Niyin demon sutra, a volume of the demon envoy's soul-eating demon technique, and the demon envoy's blood demon sutra. After finishing the transfer, the demon lord waved away the 6 people and said with a fierce demonic aura, "The Yuanxi demon sect established the 2 demon palaces of desire and destruction under this deity, headed by the king of desire and the king of destruction. The demon palace and the charming palace. The 4 halls of the demon palace, and the demon palace are located under the 2nd palace. The rest of the people are headed by the 2nd palace and the 4th palace, and the 2 demon kings and the 4 demon envoys plan to build their own. There is a volume of Yuan demon chi refining method, and everyone common to believers." After the demon lord finished speaking, he waved his sleeves and threw out a booklet and dropped it on the table. His eyes were cold and he scanned with lightning. "From now on, I shall be the supreme leader of the Yuanxi demon sect. Meet the supreme leader." When the Mandarin saw this, he immediately fell to the ground. A group of people followed suit and bowed down. "Good." The demon lord jumped in the air, crossed his legs in the void, with a huge body and unparalleled pressure, and shouted, "Since the Tai sect is based in the United States, then Eurasia is the territory of our Yuanxi demon sect. 2 demon kings and 4 demon envoys. Quote, my subordinate is here." It was the Mandarin who was the first to bow. The remaining 5 people quickly followed suit. "I will give you 3 days to organize the 2nd and 4th palaces of our Yuanxi demon sect, and then lead all my subordinates to take action, either to surrender, to kill, or to drive them away. I want this dark world of Eurasia. There is only the voice of my Yuanxi demon cult. As you command." At this moment, the Yuanxi demon sect rose from the ground. Once the big villains, who originally fought independently, had an organization and a backer. For a time, all the believers were filled with thoughts. At this moment, Demon Lord looked through the void and laughed. This smile made everyone in the hall boil with desire and murderous intent. Especially the 2 demon kings and the 4 demon envoys. Unexpectedly, when the demon lord chuckled, the 6 people started to practice the skills together, and quickly absorbed all the negative emotions contained in the demon lord's laughter, and carried them forward. The laughter stopped suddenly. Everyone in the hall was affected by the demon lord's demonic energy, and they were about to kill each other, but they heard the demon lord say, "There are centipedes coming." Like cold water in their pockets, a group of people all broke free from desire. Cold sweat broke out on their backs, and their hearts were even more awe-inspiring. The demon lord sat in the void, silent. The believers just stood there bowed and did not dare to move. About 10 minutes later, the old butler of the manor and castle shouted from outside the hall, "Who are you? Step aside." Only fists and kicks could be heard, and the old butler grunted a few times. Then the door of the hall suddenly opened. The man in front of him was dressed as a Nazi SS, with a skull-like head and a scarlet evil spirit. However, Shi Shiren led 20 or 30 people holding strange weapons. Armed men rushed in with weapons. The man had some free time, took off one of his gloves, looked up at the demon lord sitting in the void, and laughed. "Are you Chihin Tai Wuyuan demon lord? Be bold." The Mandarin jumped out, shouted loudly, raised his hand and pointed at this person with 10 rings on his fingers. The demon lord waved his hand, "Back off." Only then did the Mandarin retreat. "You are the Red Skull of Hydra." Demon lord said indifferently. "Are you here to join our Yuanxi demon cult? Hydra is very powerful and has deep tentacles. Even though it is just an ant, it has some uses." The demon lord paid no attention to the uninvited guests such as the Red Skull, and said, "Kneel down and cut off your limbs, and I will not kill you." "Ha ha." Red Skull chuckled. "Old devil, did you just wake up?" He pointed at the armed men surrounding the hall and said proudly, "Although they are just ordinary people, their weapons are not ordinary. Old devil, if you are sensible, join Hydra, otherwise." "Hydra, Hydra." Demon Lord smiled faintly. "You ants, how dare you scream in front of me? Then Hydra's real body is here, and I also slapped him to death. It is his father, the 100-headed dragon Typhon. His mother, Echidna, is here, but I am not afraid. But who do you think you are? As for these earthworms," Demon Lord glanced around lightly, "what's the use? Marcus, the devil, bring this ant forward." Upon hearing this, Marcus, the king of werewolves, looked up to the sky and howled. He swooped down and crossed more than 10 meters. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the Red Skull and reached out to pick it up with his claws. The Red Skull was startled and quickly stepped back. You are looking for death. Fire. However, there was silence. There was only a thud, thump, and dozens of armed men fell to the ground. A closer look revealed that they had all turned into mummies. Even the unusual weapons that the Red Skull said were rusted quickly, and they turned into dust when they breathed. Red Skull's heart suddenly turned cold, and he turned around to escape. But at some point, Lord Mandarin, the King of Desire, Jin Bin, the King of Destruction, and the remaining 3 demons were already lined up at the gate, blocking the way back. This Red Skull was also very human, and he did not admit defeat at this point. He turned around and fought head-on with Marcus, the King of Werewolves. But although the Red Skull had been injected with the super soldier serum and his physical strength was far beyond that of ordinary people, the Wolf King Marcus was even more extraordinary and was the King of Werewolves. An ordinary werewolf is not inferior to the Red Skull, let alone the Wolf King. With one blow, the Red Skull only broke the arm bone and screamed, flying backwards and landing at Jin Bin's feet. Kingpin's face showed a look of indifference and murderous intent. He stepped on the Red Skull's chest with his foot, and gradually increased the pressure. He only stepped on the Red Skull's chest until the chest cracked, the bones crackled and exploded, and he was about to die. The Demon Lord spoke. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.